It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here from Lower Macungie Valley, Pennsylvania. And from Stockholm, Sweden, Richard Campbell. Lots to talk about. You saw Microsoft's big announcement yesterday about marrying ChatGPT and Bing. Paul and Richard will talk about it. I'll sign up for it. We'll also talk about Google's response. Skype 3 times faster. You won't believe how. And with a completely straight face, without laughing, Paul Thurrott is going to aver that Microsoft is still committed to HoloLens. Well, we'll see. All of that coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 815, recorded Wednesday, February 8th, 2023. It's your foot. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Lenovo, orchestrated by the experts at CDW to help transform your organization with Lenovo ThinkPads, equipped with the Intel Evo platform for effortless connectivity and collaboration from anywhere. Learn more at cdw.com/Lenovo client. And by Miro. Miro is your team's visual platform to connect, collaborate, and create together. Tap into a way to map processes, systems, and plans with the whole team. And get your first 3 boards for free to start creating your best work yet at Miro.com/podcast. Thanks for listening to this show. As an ad-supported network, we are always looking for new partners with products and services that will benefit our qualified audience. Are you ready to grow your business? Reach out to advertise@twit.tv and launch your campaign now. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we talk about the latest news from Bing. Who would have thought?
Only a matter of time.
Paul Thurrott's on your left, host at thurrott.com, and, of course, author at leanpub.com. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Leo.
And joining us from an IKEA showroom somewhere in the East.
That was my joke.
That was your joke? Oh, sorry.
I made the same joke before you came on.
Mr. Richard Campbell in Stockholm.
All of Stockholm is an IKEA showroom.
I like the Norwegian aesthetic. Actually, it's ironic because the Bing wallpaper today is a Norwegian rest stop, of all things.
Really?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up for you. I have to refresh. I have to refresh my Bingle wallpaper.
I got to do something no one ever does and go to Bing.com. Let's see.
Well, I use, on my desktop, I use the Bing wallpaper, but let me, wonder if there's a way to refresh this. Yeah, there it is. It's because Monarchs, but that's old. That was like 4 days ago. It shows you how often I use this laptop. Well, it's not popping up. But I think everybody at home knows. And as soon as the thing comes up, it was quite stunning. And I thought, Norway, beautiful. But you're in Sweden, so that's different.
Yeah,
although,
is it?
It's kind of like New Hampshire and Vermont. It's not, it's different.
Whoa, no, those are extremely different. I take great exception to that.
I love Stockholm, but I've only been there in the summer. I think you're brave to go there in February.
It's chilly, but it's not dramatic.
Oh, okay. You're not snowed in and all that.
No, it's like 4 degrees and raining.
Do you like fish?
Yeah.
How do you feel about fish that isn't literally cooked, but is, fermented in some way?
Rare-ish.
There are some versions of that are enjoyable and some not so much. But
right.
I did a number of years ago, a bit of an expedition up into the Arctic Ocean, as you do. And one of the favorite crew breakfasts was the rye crisps with liver pate on it and pickles.
Yes.
Yep. Perfect.
That's
a great
meal.
meal.
It. I had it for breakfast this morning.
Classic Norwegian dish. I mean, Swedish dish. Yeah.
It was fantastic. It's fantastic, and I eat it whenever I'm here.
What are you there for?
I am here for a company called for a conference called Spetug. And I am doing the famous history of .NET talk.
Nice.
That's supposed to be a book I still haven't finished.
Speaking of which, it's been a while since I've read you for the book. Perhaps we could discuss that briefly.
Yeah. Writing history books is hard.
You tell Paul he's doing that right now. Um,
Come on, man.
History of .NET. You could contribute a chapter to Paul's book about Windows programming.
I literally took a year off from this. It was a series at the time because I wanted Richard to finish his book.
Yeah.
And I have faith in him mightily.
Oh, well, someday. Someday.
Yes, someday. I haven't given up all hope yet. I'm just despairing.
Good.
Well, you should. You know what? Let's talk about the soft line. I want to help.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Paul understands the masochistic urge.
I got to get it out of my head. It's making me crazy.
Months inside prison walls writing your book. And although, as Oscar Wilde learned, it isn't a bad way. In fact, Nelson Mandela, Oscar Wilde, go to jail. Martin Luther King, write a book.
Go to jail.
Go to jail, write a book. It's one way anyway.
Yeah. Huh.
So our
you focus a little.
I'm sorry. Our
no, I mean you would focus because of jail.
Well, you got nothing else to do. You got four walls and nothing else to do.
You would focus because there's nothing else to do.
Yes,
is what I meant.
that's the idea. And I'm just thinking, so many books were written in jail. Here, speaking of jail,
a lot more books were written outside of jail. I just,
that's true.
Just
a good, an excellent counterpoint. I agree. Didn't even think of it that way. Yeah. Here is a picture of a young lady, not in jail, but in the Microsoft offices today, checking out the new Justine and Satya. Aren't they a couple, huh? Checking out the new Bing AI. Yesterday, Microsoft had an event. Google's hustling now to do one quickly.
I know.
Because oh my God.
We have spell checking. What about spell checking? That's like AI, isn't it?
Microsoft has a little bit of an inside track because OpenAI they were one of the early investors, put $1 billion into it. They've announced an additional $10 billion. But more than that, it runs on Azure. And so, as opposed to, let's say, I don't know, the Google Cloud or Amazon Web Services. So this really is Microsoft, everybody thought, oh, they're going to do that HoloLens thing. We got plenty of time. And all of a sudden, whoa, they've got the lead in the hot new thing. Or is it? What do you think?
It is.
Yeah?
Well, ChatGPT set the record for 100 million users in the least amount of time ever.
Oh?
So,
like Connect.
Just like Connect set the record for being the fastest selling consumer product of all time. Sorry.
So, do you think they're replaying this script? Is it going to take 2 months for ChatGPT to get 100 million users? Do you think Bing AI can do that?
Oh, well. No,
because
I don't.
There's a QR code.
No.
So this, let's talk. So where do you want to start? On your notes, it starts with ChatGPT.
Yeah, so I did. The notes started. The notes are written in kind of chronological order. So okay, I think the overview of this is simply that I feel like we've entered what is the personal computing version of the Cold War. That the superpowers are lining up. They've got their nukes pointed at each other. And the reason this is so dangerous is because we really don't understand what the fallout here is exactly. In fact, I was saying to Richard before we started, it's fascinating to me that a company as conservative as Microsoft has been under Satya Nadella would do this now, just so quickly and suddenly and unexpectedly. And I suspect it has to do with, maybe they had some understanding that there were competitors kind of creeping around. Maybe something was going to happen somewhere else. But I don't think of Microsoft, Satya Nadella's Microsoft as being this aggressive.
They don't go first.
Yeah, they don't take chances.
Mm-hmm. Neither does, Apple, famously.
That's true.
And one of the things people have been saying, including Jan LeCun, who is head of AI at Meta, is, oh, no, we got that. We got that. Well, the difference was they were all Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, add a few others, Meta. We're all working on this stuff, but they weren't doing it in public.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if if you say a tree fell in the forest, but it never fell. Did the tree fall? I mean, what are you talking about? Right. Oh, yeah, we have that. Oh, great. Where is it? Well, we don't really.
Well, they would say, okay, I'll play this guy. The guy everybody hates. They would say that we are being responsible because this can't be released responsibly. And by the way, God knows Microsoft. Was it Tay And Meta, with many bots, has discovered that, it's hard to do this responsibly.
It may be impossible right now to do it responsibly, which is what makes Microsoft doing it now incredible. Jeffrey Fowler from the Washington Post did a little overview of his interaction with this Bing AI thing, and it went down some rabbit hole where it created a conspiracy theory where Tom Hanks, the actor, was somehow involved with the Watergate scandal. When he was and he was 11. And it's like, this is this is happening at the announcement event.
It happened with Google's demonstration, didn't it? They demonstrated was it Apprentice Bard or was it GPT? I can't remember. And they showed, maybe it was Microsoft with Bing showing a search. Tell us about the amazing landmarks from the James Webb Telescope. And among other landmarks, it said, and the first to take a picture of an exoplanet, which had been done 12 years before. And the professor who did it immediately said, wait a minute.
Hold on a second.
That's a mistake. Was that Bing? I can't remember who did that.
I'm not sure either. But
that's the point, is that this is early days, and it isn't perfect.
Well, so technology created by humans has inherent in it all of our flaws, all of our biases, all of
it was Google,
all of our stupids.
It was Bard. Okay.
So we're gonna listen. We already live in a world of disinformation, right? It's all out there, and you can believe whatever you want to believe. And now it's going to be dictated to us by a robot.
So let's make better, more confident.
Let's make it easier to get to it. Yeah, exactly.
Machines.
We're going to scrape the misinformation, and then we're going to send it flying back.
So let me ask both of you. This is actually maybe the most important question of this. Which is the better route to take? The prudent route of let's figure out the potential hazards of this before we make it public, or the route that Microsoft / OpenAI have chosen, kind of prompted by the success, I think, of DALL-E 2, their graphics thing, and then they saw DALL-E 2 be eclipsed by Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, these open source tools.
But it just stopping there for 1 second, there were problems with those things too, right?
There still are. They're being sued like crazy.
Right. Boy.
So I guess my question,
it wasn't easy enough.
Let me formulate the question. Is it better? Which is better? I mean, is Microsoft being irresponsible by rushing this out, or is this the only way you can really get it right is to do it in public? What do you guys think? I have an opinion, but I'd like to hear yours first.
And that would be the argument, is that the only way we really test this is to get as many hands on it as possible. I think the 100 million users in 2 months thing is a huge catalyst here.
Okay.
It's not an experimental project all of a sudden. It's got a massive market penetration. And you can't ignore that. But suddenly when it's that many users, when it's that many people engaged with it, you're kind of stuck.
Yep.
The Bing thing's an interesting angle on it for no other reason than Bing's just not been going anywhere.
No.
Now, the story I've heard with Bard is that it's been around for years, but that Google had innovator's dilemma, that they refused to put it out there because it actually decreased the amount of ad space they had on the page.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so this is the classic thing. I think you and I talked about this offline a little bit. This notion that when you have a dominant product, it's hard for you as that company to replace that thing, right? You just keep doing that thing, and then competitors that just try to copy you, don't really succeed. And so you saw that. We see that in a lot of ways, but this is what held back Microsoft for a long time, because Windows was the thing that was so successful. And when the world went in a different direction, and that kind of partnering approach didn't really work well in other markets, they had a hard time getting off of it, even though it, in retrospectively, it seemed like it should have been obvious. And I mentioned the example of Steve Jobs and the iPod. They knew the iPod wasn't going to last forever. Something would replace it. This thing was dominant, completely dominant. And, Steve Jobs said, well, what's going to replace the iPod? And they kind of talked about it a little bit. And they said, well, it's obvious it's going to be a phone. And they said, good, let's make a phone. Let's be the ones that disrupt our own company, our own business. It's very hard to do that. That's a really rare example of someone taking that.
Jobs also the guy saying nobody wants a mini iPad. And the moment he's gone,
he's not always right. Yeah, he wasn't always right.
The iPad, it sells bucket loads of them.
That's right. Well, he also made fun of phablets, early on too. I mean, sure.
I'm not here to diss Jobs. He was still immortal. He did
Oh yeah, no, I'm just holding that as an example of one time where
of the few times that an incumbent disrupted his own market.
Yep, it's very hard to do. Yeah, it's very hard to take that step, and it's hard to walk around from easy money. We had this conversation, I think as recently as last week. Do you like spin off Windows? You get rid of Windows? It's like, hold on a second, what are you talking about? This is like over $10 billion in revenue a quarter. I mean, it's not easy money. You have to maintain it, and you have to maintain relationships and all that kind of stuff.
And you have a bunch of dependent customers on it. It's not your principal product anymore.
Yeah, but you don't just walk away from it. I mean, it's
a long tail on that. You know?
Yeah.
You're going to have to suffer with $10 billion.
Right, we'll get through this
somehow.
But yeah, this feels irresponsible to me. I agree.
I don't think we've hit the irresponsible part yet, Paul. This is the beginning, right? This is just, we're going to make our search better. Now, this is an existential threat to Google. They have to respond. This product's clearly been on the shelf for a couple of years, so they put it out there. And that's fine. Now, search is weird. That's not the irresponsible part. The irresponsible part is this is now going to be an ongoing arms race.
Right.
So,
for sure. It's
the next version of graphics.
I think this is
of music.
Yeah.
The next version of video.
Right.
There's the tool they're playing with where you can dynamically recreate the background of your green screen. Like, we're only getting ready with irresponsibility. The opportunity to destroy markets while $2 trillion tech companies duel over market share for free, and they're going to hide from the Sherman Act by giving it all away, so it can't be hurting the consumer because it's free, while they smash up other people's businesses doing it.
It's interesting, isn't it?
There could be other legal regulatory challenges.
Oh yeah, nowadays it's not just consumer harm. It
could be national security at some point. There's all kinds of issues.
Last night, President Biden in his State of the Union excoriating big tech. I mean, he really blamed big tech for a lot of things, and as progressive and populist as he sounded, it sent a little chill down my spine. And I'm sure Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai and Tim Cook were going,
well, there's a real natural knee-jerk reaction to that kind of thing, because these are American companies blowing away the competition.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
If you want us to compete, he was saying, let's bring jobs back to America. Well, who's
right?
Current layoffs notwithstanding, these guys are massive movers of the economy, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
You're exactly right. Like, two of the biggest companies on this planet have now lined up across the wrestling ring from each other.
Right.
Right. And this is the first.
Let's get ready to chat.
Yeah, but like Richard said, but then it's going to be and draw and paint and write and create music and
music. I'm starting to hear music now.
Sure. Like that, and that's the real point here, is in this race for them to grab mind share around the best AI techs, with all of these different things being experimented with in public. What is that going to do to the graphic artists, to the jingle writers?
But this is the ultimate expression of personal technology, right? This is, for all of the benefits that it brings to the table, we often don't stop to think, well, what are the minuses here? Like, what are the things it's taking away? And the problem with AI is that it's exponentially bigger. It's obvious, like from day one, what the improvements could be and what goes away. It's like, is it okay that we're taking away coal and oil jobs, right, to save the environment or whatever? Yeah, it sounds like it is, unless you live in rural Pennsylvania or Ohio, wherever these places are, where they don't really have any other way of life. But this is writ large. I mean,
and you can't even necessarily define it as progress. It's two tech giants experimenting with technology in public.
Yeah.
So what are the harms? What are the potential harms, and what are the potential benefits? Do the benefits outweigh the harms?
You almost have to limit it to like a little area, because there's so much, right? We could go off in any direction.
It can't be solely to benefit Google or Microsoft. It has to be benefits to us as a society moving forward.
Well, think about anything. Think about like the simplest of tasks. You have some job. It doesn't matter what it is. And you're like, hey, Bob, why don't you throw together a PowerPoint presentation? about whatever. And this guy's like, I've never made a PowerPoint presentation in my life. I don't know how to make graphics. I don't know how to make things look pretty, blah, 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 whatever. So there's this tool that makes that better, right? And so this guy can show up with something that looks reasonably professional, whatever. The problem is that this tool can also just write the entire presentation. It can create all the graphics
Bye, Bob.
out of words that he spoke.
So long, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, Bob is not necessary for this thing. So this thing made Bob's job easier. It also made Bob's job irrelevant, or superfluous or whatever. And
you're hoping that Bob is ultimately the fact checker. The thing that the tool generated is actually correct.
And we know we need that desperately.
We're seeing it over and over again.
This is the robots in car factories argument that, like, okay, now cars used to be, or Henry Ford came in and he's like, we're going to have multiple people building one car. Everyone does the same part over and over again. And I was like, let's get rid of the people. What's the problem with this process? It's the people, right? They make mistakes. They have health benefits. They have insurance. They have, get paid.
I'm going to guess
whatever.
The bad news, which everybody, at least politicians, tries to hide, is those jobs fact-checking are fewer than those original jobs writing, or the jobs, checking the robots. Yeah.
Oh my God! And plus, it's like a TSA type job. These guys, like who are these people?
There are bad jobs out there that are human-driven. Lots of them that could be replaced by machines. That maybe those humans wouldn't mind so much. There's a guy now suing Meta because it was so traumatizing to be the guy who looked at all those horrible images.
Yep.
It's put him in the loony bin, and that's a terrible job. And if a machine could do that, I don't think anybody would say, "Oh no, I want to keep that job."
Yeah, but Apple just tried to do this on the iPhone, and they had to back off because people were taking pictures of their own kids, and they're like, "Hey, this is child abuse or whatever," and it's like, no, it isn't.
No, that's right.
And everything has a little backside to it.
Is it because we're in an interim where the machines are not good enough yet? And you could make the argument, I guess you kind of have, that the only way to get the machines good enough is to do this out in public now with real humans. And we're going to be guinea pigs. Same thing with self-driving cars, right? There's only so far you can go with self-driving cars, and you got to put them on the road at some point. At which point, you and I are beta testers for Elon Musk's crazy car.
And people have died.
People have died. But that's the price.
Granted, those people were idiots in some cases, like reading a magazine or whatever.
No. There was also victims because
I know that.
There was a car.
I don't mean
there was a Tesla that stopped on a dime in the Bay on the Bay Bridge, and there was a 6-car pileup, injured a bunch of people because the Tesla had said, I think I see something. So there's risks to all of us, whether we're participating or not. And yet, that's how you make progress, right? I mean, you can't go to the moon without great risk, and yet.
But we don't send a busload of people down to Detroit and say, "Oh, actually, we're going to the moon."
Surprise!
I hear you, but people sign up for that. I mean,
that's an interesting conundrum. I mean, this is how you make progress. I guess that's what Microsoft would argue. Certainly what OpenAI is arguing is, we got to do this in public at this point.
Yes. Well, the point being, we've done the conservative approach for several years. We've reached this point where people appear to be interested, back to the 100 million in 2 months. And so, okay, we'll give you more. It's entirely possible that 3 months from now, they're going to go, well, that didn't go well, and shut it off. There may be another
but can you really? I mean, so Microsoft could do that to some degree. Does Google also say, okay, you're right? But there's all these little apps out in the world, all these little services. I have this quick little note in the notes about I was led into the Notion AI beta yesterday, I think.
I'm so jealous.
What does that even mean?
It writes the show for him.
I didn't write it. In fact, it wrote all the articles, linked to them, and I didn't do anything. It was perfect. It's in French.
Jealous. Yeah, it's in French. But, actually, you could say that. Do Windows Weekly in French. It would probably do that really well.
Sure. There'd be a lot of me going, when I make fun of Microsoft,
Fetchez le gong.
Yep. Anyway.
Du fromage.
Look, I feel like we're not going to stop this from happening, Although there is precedent for what Richard just said, right? Microsoft pulled back software for law enforcement agencies that was doing facial recognition because it was biased against people with dark skin. you know, for example. So they basically at some point said, you know what, we can't put this out in the world. And there's a great example of software created by, I'm just going to call it middle-aged white guys, did a really bad job of looking at people that weren't just like them. And that's the kind of weird bias that gets built in to software that we don't really understand when it's this complex.
Well, and you, again, with all of the Stable Diffusion stuff, it's like when the signatures of the artist showed up in the art, it's like, hey, you trained this on copyrighted material.
Yeah.
Like we have definitely learned by putting these things forward. And now, you know, the question is, are we going to clean it up? I was wondering how long ChatGPT would be up. It felt like an experiment.
That's right.
But it's gotten to a certain place. I just wonder if there's this magic tipping point with this many users where it's like, well, we can't stop now. It's too many users.
Right.
And honestly, I hope that's not true.
I know.
Like that's kind of a bad metric.
This is so. It's a little scary how quick this is happening.
You don't know history when you're in it, right?
That's right.
So we're feeling around for it. Like I said,
that's a good way of putting it. This could be historic.
We'll see.
It reminds me of the IE Chrome duels in 2011 over HTML5.
Right.
You know, that would be the most constructive version of this, where two, you know, powerful companies with great developers trying to one up themselves to build a better and better product. Like JavaScript was transformed by that initiative. Our ability to browse was transformed. To make what made HTML5 the standard it became was that 2011, 2012 dual period where they tried so hard to do better than the others.
The age of the acid test. I miss it so.
But so the thing is, we don't know. This could be that, and genuinely, we're going to make a phenomenal acceleration in important products that will make a difference for folks, or it's going to be carnage.
It could be a little both. This is maybe the beginning of the Foundation trilogy. Really, I mean,
what? So you know, look, I mean, it's not going to be HAL 9000, but what is the risk? They're just. I mean, the initial risk that we see is just people disinformation.
Over-reliance on technology has all kinds of risks. It's not just misinformation, right? But there's all kinds of legal issues there. Like we already talked about some of the copyright type stuff. There's the loss of jobs issue,
as writers, you should probably not be
I mean, I
about
was
this. Coders
are
not thrilled because it writes code. I mean, Copilot is taking code from, which is also, by the way.
Well, so like the quality of just news, right, has gone downhill so dramatically over the past 2-3 decades, whatever, right? I always use the same example because it's what happened. You know, there were things like the creation of USA Today in the 1980s, where it was like, oh, you know, what's going on here? Or headline news in the early 1990s. And then the phenomenon, which, by the way, you should look this up on YouTube or whatever, of how local news is always exactly the same no matter where you are in the United States. And that's not an exaggeration. It's literally exactly the same. And now we have, you know, we rely on blogs and news feeds and, you know, who knows how this stuff is curated. And now this is what they're using as the basis. You know, we don't have the standards we used to have. When I started at Windows NT Magazine, I couldn't write anything that would appear in print until it was seen by at least 4 different people. They were No, I mean there were huge reviews.
There were copy editors. Remember that?
Copy editors, tech editors, everything. Yep, exactly. It was incredible, and that went away really quick. But that was I was right at the tail end of that little phenomenon. But
it's amazing to look at blog posts these days, even on big, prestigious sites where they're misspellings and all sorts of things.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely part of the problem. I'm not
nobody's fact checking you.
Yeah, who's fact checking? Yeah, exactly.
That's the beauty of podcasting. No one had any expectations about fact checking or
I like, people will send in like little corrections from time to time, which is always appreciated. It's amusing to me sometimes they'll send it in for like a newsletter. It's like I can't really fix that one.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's
no, I appreciate it though. And
always.
It's always impossible not to make mistakes from time to time.
Yes, we're human, and that's kind of the problem, isn't it? You know,
it's not human. It's not human. That's the point.
But it was made by humans, and it's taking all of our awfulness from online.
Oh, but its spelling is always right, though. I mean, it knows how to spell at least.
Okay, that's good.
Its grammar's pretty good,
spelled, even if it's the wrong word.
Yeah, wrong word rightly spelled. Yeah.
I mean, one of the problems you've got here is that people tend to overvalue what the machine says.
Right. That's right.
And that becomes the scale. Well, the machine said it, so it must be correct.
That was the point of the stochastic parrots piece that got Timnit Gebru fired at Google. She was their AI ethicist, and her concern was it has the ring of authority, and that so people will trust it more than another person. When in fact, it's easily confidently wrong, and we're seeing that very much.
There's nothing worse than confidently wrong.
Yeah,
by the way.
Well,
you know what, though?
They would point
we believe
out
nonsense without computers, right? I mean, my God, we're all in our stupid little bubbles, and we believe our own stupid little things.
We don't need help. Let's not.
No, we don't. We really don't. We don't. But we also maybe don't need to amplify it any further.
Exactly.
I mean,
so in its defense, OpenAI says ChatGPT was not ever designed to be factual. That wasn't in the design parameters.
Right.
It's like autocorrect on your phone. It's not thinking about, well, is this accurate? It's saying, but what would be the next word if I said this word? Now, that's not to say you couldn't prioritize correctness. I mean, I think that I think there's ways to do that. In fact, Stephen Wolfram wrote an excellent piece talking about the factual errors, the mathematics errors in ChatGPT. And he said, if you incorporated Wolfram Alpha, where we focus on correctness for math, you'd have a better thing. And in fact, I've read, I don't know, but I've read that they did in fact address that with ChatGPT, and math errors have much improved. So it is possible, I think, right, to make it accurate.
And these are the kind of improvements you're talking about,
right?
Yeah. The things that we go sort of discover and can fight against and make a better system from ultimately.
Although, maybe OpenAI should have realized not prioritizing facts was potentially a problem.
Well, the statement you just read from OpenAI reads a lot like Elon Musk saying autopilot is not for driving your car automatically.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. They know. They designed it. They know it's not capable of as well.
But they exploit others' misunderstanding of that.
Well, Elon does for marketing and sales purposes as well as more data. So, look, we hold Microsoft to a higher standard than we hold OpenAI. So maybe this is going to be a good thing.
But don't you feel like Microsoft is like a kid in a candy store with this thing? These are, I hope, did I put the thing about Zoom in here?
They are thrilled, aren't they, to be able to say, neener, we beat Google.
Right, which is, a little less than I'm expecting from this company, right?
Yeah.
Like in the same vein as my complaints about how these big tech companies all race to add employees and, put all these free services and then are firing all these employees and are starting to charge for everything again. It's like, seriously, this is the level of competency at the upper levels of these companies. Yeah. Like, that's crazy. The genie's out. I don't feel like we can get this back, but I'm still blown away by the fact that Microsoft went at this so hard, so fast. It just doesn't.
It's interesting.
It should excite me. It kind of, I don't know. It's weird.
You don't just see it as a post-consent decree Microsoft that's more assertive?
Man, I mean, we took a 20-year gap on that. I mean,
consent decree ended in 2011. It's 2020.
Okay, so a decade. Yeah. So when did Steve Ballmer must have left? What, 2014, something like that?
2013. Yeah.
2013. So this is okay. So we're almost a decade into Satya Nadella.
Post Steve Ballmer.
This guy is himself an AI construct, from what I can tell. Maybe that AI has just gotten better. Maybe that's what we're seeing. I don't know.
Yeah. It is fascinating. Why now, other than they had this opportunity?
Well, right. I mean, as childish as it sounds, it really does feel like they were really happy because, look, they've been struggling with Bing.
Yep.
For a long time. I'm sure internally they believe Bing is every bit as good as Google. Google actually is getting crappier and crappier. I think I don't think I'm wrong.
They've definitely been. Well, like Windows before it, they are struggling under the weight of being dominant for so long.
Yeah, it's not a good position for anybody.
I mean, it's
It's good
not
to be
a
the
horrible
king,
position,
but
yeah.
you tend to
But
get your head
fundamentally,
chopped off.
consistently, tech companies suck at leading.
Yeah,
When they're chasing, they work really hard.
that's right. Well, yeah, that was the IE thing. You know, when Microsoft didn't have any browser competition, they stopped working on the browser.
Sure.
You know, that was.
So
but
they didn't launch this in Bing yet. I went to Bing immediately to see. And
well, it's in a limited preview.
So you have to apply?
You have to get on a wait list. That's right.
Yep.
And by the way, not to, well, no, screw it. I'm going to jump right on this bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can just find a screenshot of this. I must have taken a picture of this, surely. Yeah. So you get on the wait list, right? And it says, hey, you could get to you can go to the front of the line if you want, buddy. Here's what you got to do.
How do you do that?
Set your Microsoft defaults on your PC and scan the QR code to install the Microsoft Bing app on your phone. So here's the thing. First of all, the Microsoft defaults, this is that thing I talked about. This is the reason I had to rejigger the entire Microsoft Edge part of my Windows 11 book, because those Microsoft defaults are to allow Microsoft to track you online. That's what that's for. It's to make the web better for Microsoft, not to make the web better for you. And then the Bing mobile app, first of all, nobody wants to use the Bing mobile app, but the Bing mobile app's not getting this new Bing thing. This is the old Bing. So if you want to get to the front of the line, you basically have to just sell your soul to Microsoft. And it's just.
Do I have to use Edge as my browser to do it?
Yes, that's part of the Microsoft defaults. Yeah. I know.
I don't like that.
You're giving up a lot when you do this.
Well, and I've been using Neva, as I've said many times now, a paid search engine, which I love, which has its own ChatGPT-like, and it's, by the way, been very good. AI synopsis, kind of its knowledge graph. I'm very happily using that. In fact, the more I use it, the more I feel like I don't need Google anymore. I don't need Bing. I definitely don't need Edge. Can I even run Edge on my Mac? Can I run it on Mac? Can I run it on Linux?
Yes, you can.
So I would have to change from Firefox everywhere to Edge everywhere to use this. Maybe not.
But to jump to the front of the list, you'd have to be on Windows.
Yeah.
Right? They want you to use Windows.
Oh, you can't. Yeah. Okay. So Neva
there are no
works
Microsoft
everywhere.
defaults on the Mac. You know.
So get ahead in the line when you complete the following. Set Microsoft defaults in your PC. Let's see what that involves. What do I have to do? Click the Add to Firefox button below to start the installation. The Bing search engine, and I already am using Bing wallpaper. So how hard could this be? I shouldn't.
You really going to do this to yourself?
Should I do it, really? I can always undo it. Okay. Okay. Microsoft Bing search engine was added. Okay. Now, to begin using Microsoft Bing search engine, review the following. Bing search engine shares technical and device data with Microsoft. Okay. Then manage some of Bing domains cookies and ongoing measurement. Okay. Accept. Oh. Okay. Start your search in the address bar to see suggestions. Okay. But is this now doing it?
I don't know.
Should I ask it something?
Sure.
Yeah. How many, let's see, how much, let's do it this way.
How many
much
hells
wood,
are there in a Skynet?
Yeah, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck? Oh, look, it's auto completing.
Right.
No, see, that 700 pounds is not ChatGPT. That
looks like old Bing.
That's old Bing.
Still old Bing.
That's old Bing. Let me see if Neva, let me see if I go to Neva and I ask Neva, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck? Again, autocomplete. And here is, look at that. The auto AI answer is, according to the Poetry Foundation, a woodchuck would chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Which researchers, and by the way, I love the footnotes. That's from library.bc.edu. This one's from thoughtco.com. Researchers at Cornell determined a woodchuck would chuck about 700 pounds of dirt. Dirt? No, it's wood a day.
Well, he's chucking it, so maybe he's chucking it down.
How much wood would a woodchuck chuck?
The Microsoft, whatever it's called, Bing AI search results also provide footnotes where they explain where they got this data from.
Yeah, I like that, by the way. That's ChatGPT does not do that, and I really think that's important.
See, I do too, but then again, it's like, I don't know that most people, but I think the most you can expect from a normal mainstream user would be a quick glance at that, and you recognize one of the sources, and you're like, yeah, this must be fine. Like I appreciate that they're doing that, but one of the big complaints from people who were at the event was that, what are these sources? Like some of them were like I've been a journalist for 25 years and I've never heard of this source.
Neva addresses this. They even have a little icon next to trusted sources. So if you ask it something that's controversial, like does the COVID vaccine work, it will say, okay, we have these results, but these are trusted. We consider trusted sources like the CDC or the National Institute of Health. And then in the summary, it only uses those trusted ones. So this is an example of how by putting it out in public, and they've been doing this for a few weeks now, they get some feedback and they can improve it. So I understand that.
Yeah.
And I like that. I mean, they're actually grading the sources and telling you how they grade them and so forth. That's good transparency. There's even
that's good.
I'm not getting it on this right now.
That's good.
But if I say, let's see, how did Biden do in the State of the Union? And it'll show me, this is really interesting. I really love Neva. It's $5 a month. They're not a sponsor, but I have to say I value this. I'm not getting it now. But they had a bar with red on the right and blue on the left, and you have a slider, and you can say, do I want to hear, it starts in the middle, but do I want it to be favor conservative sites or liberal sites, which I thought was really interesting. So I don't see that right now.
Interesting, but I feel like that's what we need less of. But I guess this is an opinion.
Well, you get a choice, right? You're saying it should always be in the middle, and it's defaulting to the middle.
Well, for example, is the COVID-19 vaccine effective? The answer is, well, yeah. Of course it is.
Yeah.
But there are some people who don't believe that. That doesn't mean that there are two sides to every argument. It's just,
I agree, and it's not doing
facts
both sides. Let's see.
We talked about ground.news last week, and it shows for articles, what forces of bias the given writing.
Oh, that's right.
Valuable,
that's
right?
exactly right. So the source, the service that Richard talked about last week or whatever that was.
Yeah, I love that.
Whether like sources lean in some direction or the other.
Here's the
I thought that was really interesting.
Here's the Neva source search result. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. That's interesting. Well, here's the top half of the Neva search result. I'm the bottom half. Hello. But you see, it's got these sources that they approve. Like Yale Medicine is verified, CDC is verified, Mayo Clinic, and then there's some others, like goodrx.com, which I think is fine, is reasonable, medicalexpress.com, but those don't say verified. So it's interesting. I think we have
disgruntledbob.com in there somewhere.
Disgruntled Bob.
His opinion.
Your uncle
is floating up there.
Angrydoc.com.
Yeah, my disgruntled Uncle Bob. Yeah, he stopped showing up to family events because he heard we were all vaccinated. He's got a blog. It's entertaining. That's all.
Don't get that vaccine shedding on me.
Yep.
Anyway, apparently I'm all set.
I look at you through these sunglasses. You all shine a little bit.
So I am now all set. But I don't see ChatGPT either. I'm all set. I've now screwed up my settings. You're all set. Everything's set.
You're all set.
Well, I guess if I'm going to use,
got its tendrils into your.
If I'm going to use Windows,
browser.
I should be using Edge, right? Let me do a new Edge window and see if I get anything. What should I? Yeah, see, it doesn't. I don't know. Let's see. Who won the Grammys?
Well, this will search Bing, but
for 2023, am I going to get? Yeah, but see, I'm not getting that thing. The
this
GPT.
is just you're just seeing the
regular
thing.
Bing.
You're not on the new thing yet.
Yeah.
You're all set.
This is not AI Bing. It's boring.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Look at what's trending. Church of England considered gender neutral God. Grandmother murdered granddaughter. Jill Biden kisses Harris's husband. Holy cow. Holy cow. Microsoft's deal could harm gamers. How'd that get in here?
Right.
Could harm gamers. Somebody's got.
Have we pounded this AI topic to death?
Yes.
I mean, we know.
Yes, you want to
now.
move on. I think. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
far be it from me. Now that you've got me completely screwed up my Windows settings, let's move on.
Oh, I love everything about that, and we'll see when you actually get AI Bing.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted, right? That's what I wanted. I did not get up at 5:30 Pacific for the Google thing, but I presume you did, Paul. Did you watch the Bard announcement?
I did not.
Okay, how about you, Mr. Sweden?
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I read the blog posts.
Yeah.
Anything to worry about from Microsoft's point of view? Is this
honestly? It seemed a little underwhelming.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's
another one of those. And we got that.
And the way they raced this, yeah.
Not that Microsoft hasn't done that in its time.
About what they had, and they were like, really?
Yeah, really? Remember when the iPad came out, and Microsoft said, well, we've got a really big thing like that. Remember that? Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, we got that.
I told this story before, but a million years ago, I went out to Mountain View, California. Microsoft had offices out there at the time. They probably still do. But there was some Windows Mobile guys out there. And the iPhone had come out, and it was probably like a year and a half later. And they responded with, Windows Mobile, I think 6, and then 6.5 had kind of a little UI thing. And we're in some meeting, and we're talking, and I'm taking notes. And finally, I stopped typing. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I was like, guys, when are you going to do something to respond to the iPhone? And they're like, the iPhone? What do you mean? I'm like, they're killing you. Like, what? When are you going to do something that takes on the iPhone? And this person said, well, the iPhone just verifies what we've known all along, that consumers would embrace a multi-touch, whatever device. And I was like, then why didn't you make it? Like,
I knew that.
You let some other company do it? Like, what? You're like, oh, yeah, no, we knew this. We knew this would work. You're like, oh, you knew it would work.
Many years ago, Martin Short used to do a character on Saturday Night Live, which was this kind of sleazy lawyer who was always smoking a cigarette. And anytime you said something like, your client has confessed, I knew that. I knew that. I knew that.
Yep.
Right. All right. Enough. And I think Richard has called a quorum, or whatever you call it, cloture, on the ChatGPT.
Richard just had his Mary Jo moment. That's what that was.
Mm-hmm. Here you go. You actually bring us on.
The gong on it.
But I do want to ask before we move on, because the chat room's asking, everybody wants to know. So what did you get with Notion's AI beta? Did you get anything special out of that?
I have no idea. I've not used it yet. So, so what it will do is what you would expect. It will help you. You can say, I need to do this, and it will help you organize a document along those lines. But I've not used it yet.
I think another one of those.
The trouble for me is I don't use Notion for
anything but the show. I think this is another one of those maybe. I knew that. I could do that. Oh, no, I can do that. People want that. I can do that. And then it's not really anything.
There's little bits of AI in everything, and it's going to get bigger. Like we use Grammarly to do spelling and grammar checking and things like that. Yeah, there's a little bit of this sprinkled around the world, and we're going to expect it from our tools. There are, I think this could lead to an explosion of that. I guess we'll see.
All right, let's take a little break. I want to talk a little bit about our great sponsor, Lenovo. Love them. Orchestrated by the experts at CDW. Sitting in front of a nice ThinkPad right now. The helpful people at CDW understand that as the world changes, your organization has to change just as fast. You got to adapt to be successful, right? So how can CDW help your business stay ahead of the curve? Well, with Lenovo ThinkPads. These powerful devices deliver the business class performance you're looking for thanks to Windows 10 and the Intel Evo platform. With your remote teams working across the country and around the world, collaboration isn't a problem because Lenovo ThinkPads keep your organization productive and connected from anywhere. Plus, CDW knows your workforce has different work styles. Everybody needs flexibility these days. That's why Lenovo ThinkPads are equipped with responsive tools and built-in features that let your team work seamlessly across all their favorite tools. Think about that for a second. Oh, and let's not forget about security. These high-performing machines protect at the highest level with built-in hardware to guard them against modern threats without slowing your team down. When you need to get more out of your technology, Lenovo makes seamless productivity possible. CDW makes it powerful. Learn more at cdw.com/Lenovo client. Please use that URL so they know you saw it on Windows Weekly. cdw.com/Lenovo client. All one word, Lenovo client. We thank CDW for their support of Paul and Mr. Sweden there, Rich Campbell. It's good to have you both on the show from your respective distant, remote, faraway places. What do you got against Mastodon, Paul?
What, against Mastodon?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Write an article saying it's over for Mastodon. You hurt me. You broke my little tootin' heart right here.
Well, I'm not going to apologize for reporting facts.
Mastodon had a week in the sun.
It was brief. One brief shining moment.
Yeah. No, the comparison I made is to Linux. I'm like, it may ultimately work out that there's this really techie audience that loves it, and the mainstream goes in a different direction. And that's,
So it wasn't enough just to stab me in the heart. You had to running around in circles with the Linux thing.
You love Linux.
I know.
So what's the problem?
Mastodon. It's over. Like Linux.
I didn't say it was over. I said they're losing users. It's just,
all right. That's fine. We're very happy over in our little Linux.
Yeah, no, I like it too. I wish there was more going on for me, but what are you going to do?
There seems to be a lot going on for me. Maybe it's just, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe it's me. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I'm doing something right.
No, I'm not saying that.
I usually am.
I'm not saying that. But let's continue on because you didn't put that in the notes. I just had to give you a little bit of a hard time for that. Let's talk about Windows 12.
Yeah. So, we talked about this a little bit before. You might forget. So when CES happened, Panos Panay stood on stage with the CEO of AMD. Really awkward exchange. It's pretty clear that Panos needs to be really well rehearsed, and everything has to be just right. For things to go well for him. This was not one of those occasions. However, he did talk about this thing, which we would have talked about at the time, maybe a little bit less than a month ago, that NPUs are coming to PCs. They started in the Qualcomm-based PCs, coming to AMD. They're coming to Intel. So the current generation Intel desktop chips can get an M2 adapter sometime this year to add NPU to them. And then the 14th gen that's coming out this fall will just have it natively on the chipset. And that this is going to enable all these cool AI features that we're just starting to talk about. And the big one that we have talked about is something that Microsoft now calls Windows Studio Effects. And these are those things where the camera can kind of follow you around. And if you look down, it looks like your eyes are staying straight at the camera, all that kind of stuff.
Creepy.
Absolutely creepy. Yep.
There's been, for some reason, a spate of people putting pictures of famous movie scenes up with a guy instead of
where the eyes are just looking forward,
looking at you, and it's like,
Yep, it's like the boys from Brazil or something. So I would have said, I know I said at the time, I sort of walked back from it. At the time, I said, it wouldn't surprise me if Microsoft made an MPU a hardware requirement for Windows 12. And then as I sort of said that out loud, I realized, well, hold on a second. I mean, they already ran into trouble with the hardware requirements in Windows 11. It really.
Yeah, but now why not?
Limited the audience.
Just be jerky all around. I mean, just keep on going, double down.
Except for one thing. What's happening now with AI is very exciting to normal people, right? There's all these little apps that you can make paintings of yourself or do whatever you want with art or, whatever. And maybe if they can make a good enough case for this, this would trigger the thing that Microsoft and, of course, its PC maker partners want, which is another upgrade cycle, right? Something akin to what happened during the pandemic. And, back in whenever that was, the first week, second week of January, that sounded a little far-fetched, which is why I kind of stepped back from it. But now with all this OpenAI, ChatGPT, whatever, I'm like, well, hold on a second. Maybe maybe that's what Windows 12 is. In other words, I'm not saying that actually they probably wouldn't limit it just to NPU-based computers, but you wouldn't get all this AI-based functionality.
Let me ask you guys about this. So the neural processing unit,
Yeah.
NPU,
Yep.
helps with machine learning. But do
Right.
you need it once the model exists? I mean, I understand that TPUs and things like that are used to build giant models to process a lot of data to build a model. But once the model's done, do you need all this additional special hardware?
Absolutely. Yeah,
You
because
do.
you're still running the model.
Okay.
Right. You're just not.
Because like Stable Diffusion requires a heavy-duty GPU, but that's because it's a graphics program.
They're pretty. Right, they're both scalar processors.
Okay, so you still okay, good. I'm glad you clarified this because I've wondered this for a long time. I understand that TPU is necessary for generating the data sets.
Right.
Okay, so you still
one
need
could
to
argue they could do a lot of that in the GPU.
Yeah.
But having dedicated neural nets for this is faster and lighter. The GPU has a bunch of other stuff on it that are not necessary.
In general, though, once a data set's done, you're not adding to it. Or maybe you are. Maybe that's part of it.
Well,
I mean, but there's lots of problems with that. I mean, part of what's made ChatGPT successful is they're very careful with what user utilization gets added.
Well, look what happens with autocorrect. I mean, pretty soon autocorrect, at least in some people's hands, is swearing like a sailor because you use the bad words so often. It figures you want to use it all the time.
Well, that might be what you want. I don't know. I think there's an important model here, though, that the industry has followed, and I think we're going to see it happen in the PC space, which is that Apple, because Apple has enormous data centers, but they don't have like these AI, compute clusters up in the cloud, like say Google and Microsoft and maybe Amazon have. And so they started pushing this notion of NPU on the client. And it was, what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. It was a really good model for them because it kind of worked into their whole privacy thing and all that stuff. And, we're going to do this processing locally where Google at the time had to do it up in the cloud. The funny thing about that is actually there are huge advantages to that. So Google adopted that. You talked about autocorrect. So a lot of the Google autocorrect stuff, if I'm not mistaken, occurs completely on the device now. They don't actually have to go to the cloud anymore. That Apple's model had some advantages to it. And obviously for real-time things like the video stuff I was talking about, the Windows Studio effects, that has to happen, obviously that's local processing. That has to happen on the computer for that to make sense. And so I do feel like there's an opportunity for Microsoft to do on the PC client what Apple and Google now have done with AI on mobile. And because computers are where we get productivity work done, that this could maybe be a game changer for the PC.
Because of the available compute?
Because of the available compute and because of the types of things that we use computers for. In other words, like on a phone, there's these little things that, we're going to remove a background image from a photo, or we're going to do autocorrect like Leo said, or we're going to use an app to make a cartoon version of your face. Like you take a selfie and there's all these different versions of it. And that's great. I mean, that stuff's all great. And some of that's productivity related. But, when you're writing a document, when you're creating an Excel spreadsheet or you're creating a PowerPoint presentation, I guess we could tailor AI tasks for individual apps, and I'm sure they will. But Windows has this base platform that I think makes sense for AI. I think AI makes sense as part of the Windows platform.
Well, you're talking about the search pill, right? Like the search pill in Windows.
I hope not. But yeah, okay.
I mean, part of the idea there is sometimes I type in the name of an app or name of a task, and the search comes up and goes, well, you have that app.
Yes. Right.
And, let me take you there, as opposed to actually pulls from Bing and brings up some links. So, I mean, your point about position is important, that the most macro view is the Windows bar. It's, the search bar.
Yeah. Right. And today, we've made fun of, or maybe actually the right way to say it is we have criticized this thing that Microsoft has put into search in Windows, where you bring up the search interface, which is the same size and shape as the start menu. And it has this search highlight thing over on the side. And what if that was actually useful, right? In other words, instead of search highlights that are like, hey, Jules Verne was born today, which apparently was the case today, which is interesting, but not the reason I went to search, right? So today that's kind of a distraction, but rather this became the center of, I want to get something done, Microsoft has tried this in unsophisticated ways. I mean, everyone remembers things like, Clippy, obviously, and Bob before it.
Yeah.
But also, I would say there's this kind of document center interface that Microsoft created for Windows 95, and then stepped away from really quickly, that I always thought was really interesting. And the idea was, instead of thinking, because you have to do this on mobile too. This was, by the way, they tried it again with Windows Phone. I want to create a document. What's the application I use for that? It's Microsoft Word. So I got to go find Microsoft Word. Like, instead of that, just say, I want to create a document.
Right.
And it was kind of a neat idea.
But really, I need to write down some stuff.
Yeah. Right.
The app from there is kind of secondary to the point.
And they started this notion of compound documents. This idea that sometimes a document is something that's not just a spreadsheet or a word processing document. Mm-hmm. It's a thing that might be a word processing document that has a spreadsheet inside of it, right? As part of that, table. Right? And that when you click on that
more
thing,
than a better Bob.
Does it? Well, I mean, in other words, like we've been using this.
Do you think Clippy would be embraced if Clippy had AI instead of?
No. So actually, maybe the better example is Windows Phone, because it's more recent and it's a more modern example of Microsoft's thinking along these lines. Like, Microsoft with Windows Phone created this notion of hubs. And the idea was, I want to share photos with somebody. You don't have to think Instagram, Facebook, Flickr, whatever, Google Photos, whatever the services are. You just go to this interface and you say, pick your photos. And now you say, where do you want them to go? You're like, hey, I want them to go to these places. Or maybe this is an automatic default, whatever it is.
Right.
And it just happens. You stop thinking about brands, which was the problem, by the way, with Windows Phone, but was the idea. And you stop thinking about apps. And you just think about that thing that it is that you want to do. This is the essence of AI,
too, right? That the contact was agnostic to all this. I mean, you're talking, in theory, when we finally see it, the Bing AI will look like ChatGPT. It'll be a bigger box that you can type into. Yeah. Why does it have to be in the browser? Like, what does that buy you?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just in Windows.
Exactly. Like, I'm trying to get something done. I want to do that. Like,
I have a goal.
That is ChatGPT. Like, you go to ChatGPT and you say, whatever it is, I want to know this thing, whatever it is. Like, why couldn't we go to Windows and say, I want to get this done?
Right.
Work told me I need to create a presentation about our annual report, blah, 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 whatever it is. And it's, in this case, maybe you're connected to your corporate resources. Mm-hmm. It has that information on the Microsoft graph. Comes up, and maybe that's the start of the process. You could put that, I'm sure they will. They'll put it in Word, they'll put it in PowerPoint and all that stuff. But when you go to one tool, you're by definition limited to the capabilities of one tool.
Of the tool. Yeah. Everything is a Word. If you're in Word, everything's a doc.
Right.
That's right. If you're in PowerPoint, everything's a presentation. If you're in Windows, it's anything that runs on Windows.
Yeah. And this could, I'm fantasizing in a way, other than the fact that the evidence is kind of all around us. And Panos Panay talked about this future AI-based version of Windows briefly and vaguely at CES. And the idea here is that this is the thing we sit in front of. They keep talking about how the engagement of Windows is higher and higher. Mm-hmm. Even though the PC sales have gone down, people are still spending more time on PCs than they did before the pandemic. This is how we get work done. Windows 11, you can look at different versions of Windows and you can say this was the point, right? You can say the point of Windows 8 was mobile. We had mobile in touch. We had to address that.
Right.
All right, that didn't work out great, but that's what they did. Windows 10 was kind of a return to the desktop, but it was also about this idea of like the one Microsoft platform where these apps could run across different hardware devices that were all Microsoft devices.
Right.
HoloLens, phone, whatever, the story there. Windows, and what's the point of Windows 11?
It was available everywhere.
But what's Windows 11, Supermodel, kind of pretty face.
No, that's what it is. Mac came up with a new OS, so we need a new OS.
Yeah, right. So I feel like Windows 12 could have a real identity by focusing on AI. It
would at least make it different. It's just not another Windows, right? I mean, when was the last time we looked at Windows and went, like, you have to have that to be competitive? That hasn't been true in a long time.
We've also been talking for a long time about how nobody cares about upgrading per se, right? Windows 8, they cared. They were dying to get off of that. But since then, it's like, yeah, whatever. Who cares? Oh, look, it's, people, I've had multiple people say, friends of mine who would be like, hey, I got, Microsoft told me I could get Windows 11. Should I bother? I'm like, yeah, it's not going to hurt you. It's fine. And then I'll ask them later. They always say, it's incredible. They're always like, I'm like, what happened? Like, that's fine. It's just like, whatever. It didn't really change my life or anything. No one's buying a new computer to get Windows 11.
No.
And that's part of the problem. People bought new computers because of the pandemic. They couldn't have cared less what it was running.
Mm-hmm.
But this might be, people are so excited about AI that if they do this right, it could drive an upgrade cycle. That's all. And that's something we've not had in
if it really provides
a long time. If it really does. That's right. There's a lot of ifs in here. Yeah.
And I've been building, I built a new workstation myself, but one for she who must be obeyed. And went Win 11 on it.
Yep. Right.
And turns out the HP network scanner we have
oh boy,
will support Windows 11.
Yep.
Just fine in 10. Well, run in 11.
Right.
But is the model that different?
I know. No. That doesn't make any sense, but that's
like almost something they put in on purpose. Like, time to buy a new printer.
It's a network scanner, so it's $1,000. To go to
because I don't think the driver model's different in 11 from 10.
I don't know. No, that's right.
Full stop.
That should work.
All the support goes. Oh no, it stands at 1064-bit. Sorry.
That means they're checking the version.
Yeah. The version, yeah. You can't use it like an old-fashioned compatibility tool. I know it's still built in.
Yeah. No,
I tried.
Annoying. I mean, I know the tricks. I ran as admin. I used compat services. Which, by the way, they don't have a Win 10 compat services mode. They have a Win 7. They have a Win 8.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because it's the same operating.
Sure.
Sorry.
Well, it's like Windows 2000 and Windows XP. XP looked a lot different, but it was
you don't really need a compatibility mode. It's same operating system.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the supermodel version.
Yep.
As you say.
Right.
That's so annoying. But you know what? I'm not surprised. Printer companies are pretty notorious for this kind of junk.
No, admittedly, that scanner is old, but that scanner is good. Works fine.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No, they've decided it's time for you to buy.
We're not going to build the Win 11 driver. And maybe they will. Maybe we're in the gap right now where at some point they're going to update the universal driver and it'll just support it. But at this moment, no.
I love HP, but this is a company that sells ink subscriptions. I mean, I don't know if
Paul, good news. You love the good HP. They spun out that printer division, that Colorado division. That's another HP entirely.
Right.
Right? There's HPE. There's
I think printers and PCs are the same company.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So I assume scanners are, I'm not really sure. I know there's an HPE that is enterprise.
Yeah, that's the enterprise. I thought there were 3 divisions. Let's ask ChatGPT.
Yes. How many HPs are there? Well, there's HP Sauce, Leo, and then...
Which is quite good, by the way, if you can get it.
Yeah, it's no A1, but it's up.
Yeah, you're right. The PC and printer business are HP Inc.
Yeah, they're together.
Sorry. I tried.
Yeah.
AI-based Windows sounds like a gimmick.
Yeah.
That's the thing you have to watch out for, right?
It sounds like a gimmick, but this is one of those things. It's got to demo well, right? If you can prove that this thing could help you.
Yeah. Now, if this provides a competitive advantage.
Well, there's also something going, not that this is why you would make this product, but I mean, there's a weird dynamic right now in the world where we're all going to work from home. And then suddenly companies are saying, you know what? Actually, we want you to come back, or we want you to come back part-time, whatever it is.
Right.
Something that could, make you more productive and kind of make that case for you staying home could be of interest. Just saying. I mean, it'd be easier than taking an Excel class or whatever the books or classes or whatever it is you'd have to do to figure out how to get these multiple things to work together.
You hit on a great point from a manager's perspective. The idea that I could look at your chat log with the AI in your operating system and say, you took on this project, here's the initial request, and then you drilled in with some content messages and worked on different pieces. Like, I now have essentially a dialogue you had with your machine about doing your work.
In the case of my son, it would have been a 10-second dialogue where he said, make the thing, and they never even looked at it, and then he submitted it. But yeah, I mean, hopefully there are some people who...
That's fine. You'll know the difference,
with
right?
The stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the holy grail. John Scully made a video for Apple years ago, the Knowledge Navigator.
Yeah,
that little AI in a bow tie doing exactly that kind of stuff That's what. So this is why these companies are spooked and maybe even running around like chickens with their heads cut off. This is the kind of thing that changes everything. This is could be, we don't know, potentially a paradigm shift that could reorganize the powers that be. And they're terrified of that. You know, we always say, oh, yeah, you know, there'll always be a Facebook and a Google and an Apple and an IBM. Well, no. No.
Well, actually, there probably will be an IBM. They're the Discover card of technology.
They're the cockroach of technology companies. Yeah. They'll survive an atomic war. Yeah. They'll be around.
No one will know what they do, but they'll still be around. Yeah.
So, but I think that whether it's true or not, and I mean, I think still an open question that it is a paradigm shift. But if it is, Ben Thompson at Stratechery says it is. If it is, then these companies are scrambling because this is the kind of thing that puts you out of business. You know, the company. You mean the company? This could be some, you know, some garage startup does this right.
Well, you know, scale helps. That's the one thing they've got going for them,
right? Because you need that back.
Well, that's why Microsoft. I like Microsoft's strategy because they're still going to need Azure. Right. Yeah. The smart thing to do would be you know, the guy selling picks and Levi's to the miners.
Actually, that's the biggest point we should have made in the opening AI segment, which is this. AI is an existential threat to Google. Even if Microsoft doesn't win, because so many of those workloads will have to run in the cloud.
Yeah.
Microsoft could still be fine. They might be IBM. Yes. They'll be plumbing or whatever. But, you know, if Microsoft's AI platforms don't win, so to speak, whatever that means, I still think they come out on the other side of this fine. There's still this giant diversified company that should be successful regardless of what happens. This is a problem for companies like Google. Well, for Google especially. You know, potentially.
Nothing's threatened their primary product for a long time, to the point where the FTC is after them as a monopoly.
Right.
You know, because clearly when you own that much of the market, you end up stomping on some folks inappropriately, whether intentionally or not. Like that's what we talk about when we talk about monopolies. The company to question then is Apple. Because if they go down this path with Windows, how does Mac OS respond? They don't have a cloud.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. They don't have a cloud. Yeah, they don't have a cloud, an AI cloud, like for this kind of thing. Yeah, for sure.
No, they could build one.
Yep. Yeah, they have some money. I guess they could figure it out.
They don't have to go to a multinational cloud like Azure or AWS or even GCP to some degree. But they could build out enough infrastructure to operate a similar level of service. It's just a question of, you know, when
they're not big on partnering. I can tell you that.
They're going to do it themselves.
They'll have to do it themselves. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not like Microsoft's sort of partnering. To me, OpenAI seemed like an arm's length deal. Like, let's go experiment with AI with this thing over here.
Well, there are partners. There's partnering that's going to occur on the other side of this equation, right? Because they're going to partner with companies that will build off of their stuff as well, right? So there's different levels of partnering. But you know, Apple, regardless of what happens in the AI space, Apple is still primarily a devices company, and they should be fine in that sort of sense. Like they could do fine without really playing a major role in the cloud. The problem for Google is that if you took away the cloud part, there's nothing left. I mean, there's no, you know,
how about
they really have nothing else.
Is this good for Amazon? Couldn't AWS they have TPUs?
AWS will absolutely play a role in the plumbing part of this, a huge role. You know, there's no doubt about it.
They're the one that third-party vendors that want to build these products will run against. You know, this is the workload that a third party wouldn't bring to Azure because Azure is completing at the client level, right? You don't want to hit them head on. But
it's also
have a client.
Amazon is not what I would call a leading edge. I don't want to say non-innovative. They're not on the leading edge of hardware, right? They tend to go really cheap on hardware, super inexpensive chipsets. They're selling to a mass market. They sell like a $50 tablet, not a $400 tablet. They're not going to do MPUs right on the device. Like that's not their. That's not
the device market's not a big deal for them,
right?
Not that they ever did well with it in the first place.
Yep.
And in fact, you know, you see their general war against their hardware now with their attacks on Alexa and so forth.
Yeah, that's right.
They've got a role to play, certainly on the back end.
Yeah, I think they're comfortable where they are. That's fine. Like I said, Apple, I think client comfortable where they're fine. Microsoft, if everything else goes south, they have Azure. That's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Honestly, the outlier here is Google. I don't see what happened. Like if search disappears or declines dramatically, that's their entire business. Yeah. It's 70. I think the most recent quarter was
trying for a decade to try and diversify their business. Yep. And they have not done
all
much.
That money has bought their way into all kinds of different markets, but none of them are hugely successful. Google Cloud did have significant growth in the fourth quarter year-over-year, but
Google Enterprise has some growth.
Yeah,
nothing touches search. It's not even close.
No, it's not even close. It's 77 or something % of their revenues. It's the whole enchilada. Yeah. I speak like that now because I have a place in Mexico. So
everything's tamale, this, taco, that.
Yep, that's just slipping right into that mindset.
You're going. I thought you'd be down there actually.
Leo, so did I. Yeah, we're going down March 2nd.
Okay,
for 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought I was going to spend the whole winter there this year.
Next year.
Yep.
You have the resident permit. You can do that, right?
Well, we have to finalize it in Mexico City in March. So we're going to, we'll get that little card.
Good.
Yeah.
You'll be in Mexico. Jealous. I will be in New Zealand again.
Nice.
Officiating another wedding.
Yeah. Oh, you actually go to New Zealand to marry people. Yeah. That's interesting. Is that the only place that'll let you do that?
No, in fact, they won't even let me do it down there. I'm not a citizen. Or I am a citizen, but I'm not a resident.
Right.
So
wait
a
minute.
Have one of their.
I love the notion that New Zealand has lax laws.
Wait a minute. How many citizenships do you have?
Just 2.
It's New Zealand and Canada.
That's right.
And how did you get
the? Yeah, how'd you get that?
The New Zealand one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was born there.
You're a New Zealander. You're a Kiwi.
True, but I speak American.
Why aren't I would be especially in COVID?
You're like an AI construct. You fooled us all.
I would have gone. I would have said, that's where all the tech billionaires have their hidey holes.
No, I visit with them regularly.
I had no idea.
They literally live in Hobbiton from the movies.
Yeah, between all the herds of sheep, because Peter Thiel, and it's just like a long line.
Yeah, they're all down there. You don't have any face tattoos. That's what fooled us.
No, right. Yeah, somehow I resisted. And I don't do a very good haka either. So.
Oh, I want to. Ha! Ha! And I'll rub your nose.
I thought you meant Hawkeye from MASH. I see.
I'm so jealous. I've never been. I always wanted to go. Do you go down there a lot?
Farms down there.
You do?
Yeah, at least a couple times a year. So yeah,
it's a long flight, even from where you are.
It's a dairy farm.
It's a long flight. Yeah,
it is a long one.
Do you fly from Vancouver to Auckland?
Yeah, Air New Zealand does Vancouver Auckland direct 3 times a week.
What is that, like 17 hours or something?
14. 787 service. I highly recommend.
Oh, you get the lie flat. When I went down on Qantas, they gave us jammies.
Yeah.
It was so cute because everybody would get their jammies, and then one by one we'd go into the men's room and come back in our jammies.
Yeah, the one time I flew to New Zealand, I got to sleep in the nose of the plane. It was beautiful.
Yeah. They open the nose for you, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, it's can we get some air in here? A little dry.
Okay, so good. Okay, I don't know where that. We were talking about Mexico and now then New Zealand. I'm with a bunch of foreigners here on the show. I swear. I swear to God, I had no ideas.
Who knew?
All right, well, somehow Notion closed this. Maybe that was the AI getting involved.
It was the AI. Exactly. Well, you wondered how it worked. Now you know.
So I know you've all been waiting for this. Paul's been waiting for this. It finally happened. Paul, you want to share the good news?
Yeah. If you have gone to the Microsoft Store in Windows 10 or 11 and thought, this thing could only be improved by ads, I've got good news for you. They figured it out. So this was something Microsoft promised to developers last year at Build. If you remember, they were going to bring in a new monetization method for developers because when was it? 2021 or 2020, they shut down ad monetization in UWP apps.
Right.
And so this is a way, basically, look, everyone's been to a mobile app store, so it looks and works exactly like it does on, I'd say, iOS or Android. You'll search for something, and the first thing that'll come up will be a sponsored thing, and then the next one will be the thing you wanted. It will say add in it in a very small way. It looks exactly like it does literally on iOS. It's the same exact kind of a thing. But the idea here is that developers can pay to have their things promoted and put in front of eyeballs. So it's not completely obnoxious according to the one screenshot I've seen. I've never seen it in real life yet. I don't know if they're live yet or not, but
now when you talk about the AI powered Windows 12, I'm like,
oh God, yeah.
Gee, that means it's going to select apps for me, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be like that joke app I was talking about. You'd be like, well, I'm going to click on that thing I look for. And it's like, no, we'll just click on this other thing. They paid enough. You're going to get that instead.
They're what you're going to click on.
Yeah, you're going to get that. So,
I always love a good game of free sell. And in Win 10, it's a store one. And it is constantly trying to sell me something else.
Let me tell you, you could subscribe to that app. It is one of several places in Windows you can just subscribe to something that has just does nothing to do with anything. But yep, there it is.
For just a little free cell play.
Incredible.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a little free cell play. No. TechCrunch is saying Bing just saw a 10% jump in downloads.
Wow. From 7 to 1.7 or whatever. 10%.
I'm sorry, 10x. 10x.
Oh, 10x. Okay.
Yeah, order of magnitude.
Bob, what's a 10x of 0?
It's still 0.
Yeah.
Hey, you look at. I think that 100 million number is important, and if they get 100 million people been using that,
I think you're right about the 100 million thing. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that number
that may have been
that's more users than Bing has.
Yep.
What are we doing?
Yep. Right. Exactly. Right. How much money have we spent on Bing since, it was called Windows Live Search or whatever it was to begin with? And then compare it to the whatever billion we threw into ChatGPT originally.
Yeah. Why 100 million people though? What is that?
Well, that was the magic thing about ChatGPT is that in 2 months it was the fact it got to 100.
It hit the number so quick.
Right.
It hit the number.
It was like, why aren't we just like pivoting right on this thing?
And I think that tore through Redmond in a big way. Yeah. It's such a big number.
Well, this 10x number has got to be tearing through too. It's like it worked
in a day.
In a day.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk in 30 days, right? And then there's other milestones to come too, because the service is only going out to a very limited number of people. This is just people who are kind of interested now. They look and they're like, oh, I can't even get it now. I mean, what is this going to look like when the floodgates are open, right?
Well, and especially if how long can you afford to hold people at arm's length with your gatekeeper?
Yep.
Before they lose interest.
Yep. Well, but I notice I'm now Edge is my default browser and Bing's my default search.
You have
worked. It
you
worked
have
for
given
me.
up your ideals so easily. You like Linux, Firefox,
do whatever you want.
Search engines called.
I need a friend.
You're like, nope, I'm going all Edge, baby. Track me. I don't care. Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But you can see, I mean, if they get that kind of response and they get people, this helps them across the board.
Oh, yeah. Let's be clear about that, because you're going to be hitting a lot of Microsoft services. You're going to be hitting Microsoft ad services. This is money. And by the way, Microsoft's ad business actually grew enormously last year regardless. So this could be very big for Microsoft.
Yeah. No.
I did a search on my new shiny Microsoft Bing.
Okay.
Did HP spin off the printer division a couple of minutes ago?
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at the result here. Does that big yes new? Is that the ChatGPT? Yes. It says yes in big letters.
What did you ask?
Did HP spin off the printer division? Yes, according to 2 sources. Yes. Is that new? You don't have it yet, dude. You do a Bing search for.
It says exactly the same thing.
Same thing. Okay, so that's not ChatGPT. That's just weird. That's just weird.
I think unless I'm missing something.
I mean, at least it's clearly answering your question.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's correctly, but it is clearly answering.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's what Google's always said, is people don't really want to click the links in the search results, much to the chagrin of the Wall Street Journal and everybody else. They just want the answer.
Well, that's not the answer, unfortunately. So HP split into 2 with printers and PCs going into one company. It later split HPE in 2, and it spun off its IT services business. So the printers are still part of HP. So
yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
Because I was asking, like,
I
are
don't know what to
printers
say to
and they're
this.
standalone? So yeah, that yes is ambiguous.
It's
text box
arguably
below it.
incorrect. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not right.
Yeah.
By the way, anyone else really miss Carly Fiorina, or is it just me?
How about Meg Whitman? How do you feel about Meg?
Remember, she was going to make a light blue iPod. Remember?
Well, Leo Apotheker. Whatever.
Oh my God!
happened to
Right?
him?
Jeez.
Wow.
Actually, bad news on that front, Leo. Yeah, he kind of went down in a bad way. But they had that other. What was that guy? Mark.
Mark
Guy went
Hurd.
to Oracle.
Yeah.
Mark Hurd. Yeah.
Hurd.
He ended badly, if I remember correctly, as well.
But Oracle, Larry Ellison being the generous
the
guy that he is,
humanitarian.
the humanitarian,
Of course.
said, you're tainted. Sure, you had an
You know
affair
what he
with a
said? He
subordinate,
said, you know what?
but I like
You're
you.
our kind of guy. You're our kind of guy. Listen, we're going to be doing some TikTok stuff. I don't know. Want to take that on? Anyway, jeez. HP is a good company, by the way. Right now, I mean the current company.
Yeah. I've been they really turned their PC division around. Actually,
They make some nice. They make some nice.
Yeah, they make
laptops.
beautiful computers.
Yeah. The whole printer scanner business. Boy, oh boy.
Oh, I feel bad for you.
Yeah, that's tough.
New insider build for the beta channel. Woo!
Yeah, this happened late last week, if I remember correctly. I only mentioned this for one reason. There are no new features per se. However, I think this is the hint to where the little search bill is going. This is okay news. There's a new IT policy that lets admins customize how search looks on the taskbar. And there are three choices, if I remember correctly: icon, pill, search bar, like you used to see in Windows 10. So that suggests to me that that's going to be the future direction. In other words, for all of this back and forth, and by the way, public beta testing of the pill, I think in the next version of Windows 11 or sometime this year, they're going to add a little UI in there where you get to choose.
Yeah,
a little drop down or whatever it is. So that's fine.
When you were talking about that, the IT guy in me was like, "Hey, don't mess with my tech support." Right? That turns straight into tickets.
Yep, exactly.
Costs me money.
Right, which is weird looking thing on my taskbar. Yeah. Anyway, I think they'll resolve that, but I'll never understand what this past year.
The answer in the end is let the user let someone choose.
Yeah.
So, will there be a new policy editor feature that I could turn the thing on?
No, I think for individuals it will just be in the UI. Like in fact, there is in Windows 10, right? So when you right click on the taskbar, among the many options you see in there, one of them is search, and then you get the choices: nothing, icon, or search bar.
Oh,
I think is the way. And there's no reason not to do that in Windows 11.
It'll be implemented as a group policy so that an administrator can.
It will be in settings. Yeah. That's fine.
I use, and actually I like this one. It's okay. This is crazy, but the one thing I like to use Edge for is reading PDFs.
Right.
I can do it in Firefox, but I want to have the copy's always in a PDF, the ad copy. So I want to have that in a separate kind of app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so but now it looks like Edge is going to start. What's going on?
I know, this is crazy. So you guys probably remember the history of this. Back during the Longhorn timeframe, Microsoft invented something called XPS, which was a PDF kind of competitor. It arrived in Windows Vista. Didn't go very well. It wasn't super popular. It continued forward. XPS is still supported in Windows 10. I'm not sure if it's an optional feature today or if it's just built in, but obviously the world is PDF, so they finally gave up on that little disastrous problem. I had heard a million years ago, and I mean possibly the early 2000s, from someone at Microsoft that Microsoft had long ago reverse engineered PDF, and I'm sure that played a role in XPS or whatever. But there were legal issues around that, and there was a lot of antagonism between the two companies back at the time. But today they're big partners, and this is not all good news. But basically, Microsoft is going to replace its PDF engine in Edge with the Acrobat PDF reader engine, which they say will be faster. It will probably be bigger. It's happening. It's going to be mandatory. So managed businesses, right, are going to be able to opt out of it for 1 year. But then in March 2024, they're going to have to go to the new engine.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to say
plenty of
Acrobat.
organizations that that have no Acrobat at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Acrobat Reader was notoriously buggy. I mean,
Yep.
It was a security nightmare.
Well, you may be asking yourself, why are they doing this? Like, what's the point of this? And the point of this is that it will try to upsell you on the paid version of Acrobat.
Right.
That's what it's really about.
Oh,
so
boy.
so these
Crapware
features
integrated into Edge.
Money makes the world go around, the world go around.
Yeah, so there'll be another ad in there, which is like, okay, whatever. So
That's depressing as hell.
Yeah.
I'm sorry Microsoft's suffering so badly.
I know. They're trying to milk this thing as much as they can from any direction. Although it's interesting. So their list of things that will be better include higher fidelity for more accurate colors and graphics, improved performance, strong security for PDF handling, and greater accessibility, including better text selection and read aloud narration. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, if it really is better, I guess. I mean, I thought it was all right, but okay.
You know what would really make it better, Leo, is you could subscribe to an Acrobat subscription directly from the browser.
That would be so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll go back to rendering PDFs in Firefox. Maybe that's not so bad after all.
I would say most browsers, if you just want to read PDFs,
it's a
right?
standard format.
Most of them work pretty well, As I've kind of moved back and forth, I don't think I've ever used a browser where I was like, oh man, what this thing's missing that I use all the time or whatever. Like it seems like they work reasonably the same. So anyway, that's happening. Sorry, everybody. So, if you were trying to have less Adobe in your life, that's not going to work out. Oh, I should say too, this is going to be Windows 10 and 11 right away. And then sometime in the future, it's coming to Mac OS. What's interesting about that is Edge is also available on Linux, and
it's not coming to Linux.
They have not addressed Linux. So I don't know what's going on there.
They ever say what the penetration is of Edge into Linux and
it's
Mac
like
OS?
It's like when something bounces off of something else, it's that level of penetration.
You saying Linux is an immovable object?
I'm saying that if you have decided to use Linux, I don't think anything about Edge is going to get you to, make the switch, right? I don't.
You know what's missing from Linux? I want more.
No.
I want more ads.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Having enough.
Yep.
Where's my Adobe Acrobat Reader?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you even function in Linux? It must be weird. Is it like using Chrome OS, but worse?
All I know is when I double click a PDF, a thing opens called Document Viewer.
There you go.
And it looks pretty good.
It renders exactly right.
It renders it,
about it,
and I'm done. Doesn't open a browser. It opens the document viewer.
I like it.
Yep. Simple, clean, almost as good as Mastodon.
If you like stuff just to work, I guess that's fine. I don't know.
I need more advertising. Speaking of which, should I do an ad now, or would that really be counterproductive? Wouldn't that be a bad idea? Maybe.
Speaking of ads,
let's move on to Microsoft 365. I'll do the ad. I'll do the ad later.
Yeah, give that one a second. This one's just real quick. I'm astonished every time this happens now, where Microsoft somehow has not updated one of their apps for the M1 or the Apple Silicon chips. The worst one to me was OneDrive. Right, it took them over a year. OneDrive integrates with the file system. It's incredibly important for that to be native. That experience was really bad, but they fixed that. So they just updated the Skype app. It's native on the M whatever chips, the Apple Silicon chips. And Microsoft now claims, it's like, hey, we did this and now it's like 3 times as fast as it used to be. Yeah.
I thought all Skype implementations were Electron.
Oh, that's an interesting thing. I don't know. I don't know what.
And there's always been rumors that they were going to try and make alternatives to Electron.
I don't know.
But they did the M1 implementation.
Well, so actually, Microsoft Teams, right? Yeah. Would you say that's Electron too, right?
That's an Electron app, without a doubt.
So that app went native on Apple Silicon last year sometime as well.
Right. So
I wonder if it's something about.
Well, and I'm also aware that both Teams and Skype use the same
backend or whatever
API, right? Like their underlying video and audio control is the same chunk of code. So
I don't know.
yeah, if you can do native on Apple, why aren't you doing native on Windows? Because it's not like
Yeah.
everybody's sitting around going, you know what Teams is? Really fast.
Right. The worst thing about Teams is how fast
Yeah. God, could you slow it down, please?
you barely keep up with this thing. I use Teams every day, and I've not yet gouged my eyes out with a fork, but then I think about it.
I mean, I'm not going to make it better, but at least it would be painfully quick.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
Anyway, I think it's really interesting to consider the possibility they're starting to make native versions of these things that have previously been Electron apps.
Yeah.
Like, what does this mean underlying?
I think it means it's time to move past Electron, honestly.
Please. Can't .NET do something about that? I mean, if it rocks so hard.
Could.
Yeah.
As some claim.
Well, and it was one of my thoughts when GitHub went to Microsoft in the first place is, hey, the Windows team and the Electron team are going to get together and make sure this goes really, really fast. Like they could make some dramatic improvements. They've done that sort of work before. It just doesn't seem to have appeared.
Electron reminds me so much of that old, what was the name of it? There was a macro, there was a Flash app format. Remember? And everything was done in it.
Action script.
Yeah, but it was it had a name. Anyway, so all the cross-platform apps were done in Flash, basically.
Yeah.
And so there was an advantage for sure to that because, you had cross-platform and same thing with Electron. You see a lot of stuff that
the big strength with Electron is you write it in JavaScript and it runs equally slowly on all of the platforms.
Yep. Nobody gets an advantage.
No.
Adobe Air. Adobe Air. That was it.
Yeah.
Adobe Air. My God.
Thank you, Verona. Yeah. He remembers the bad old days. Yep.
Sure.
So there's a need. There is a need
from
for
the
that.
Carcass of Macromedia.
That's why we really wanted PWA to be successul, because there's a need for that. There's got to be some lightweight way, and sure, you can use JavaScript and web technologies, but you don't have to bundle an entire browser with every app.
You don't want something as complicated as Teams in JavaScript, right? There's got to be a.
Well, I don't know if that's the issue.
I don't know. That's a big. That's a big hairball for JavaScript.
I mean, it depends what's in JavaScript. If just the UI is in JavaScript, is there some Teams core written in C++ or something, or C#?
You would hope, but I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
For a long time, Apple, and they finally killed it. Apple wrote iTunes in AppleScript.
Right.
It was just a bunch of AppleScript cobbled together, and it was pig slow. Adobe Lightroom is pretty much all Lua, just a bunch of scripts glued together.
Interesting.
PWA seems like such a better way to do it.
Yep.
But you still kind of want a binary for the speed critical stuff, right? Don't you? Some way to have a blob that's delivered.
Yeah, but this is
like the C library.
Oh.
What is that? What is that CDLL that it's everywhere? C++ DLL.
A VB Run 300. Yeah.
But I mean, there's a need for that. That's why Adobe Air succeeded. That's why Electron is around. There's a need for that.
Yeah, but at what price? It needs to constantly improve.
Let's do it better. I mean, there's got to be a better way than distributing a browser with your app.
Right.
I mean, we all have that rendering engine on our system already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. It should use whatever the native rendering engine is.
Is it that dependencies are what's killing you? Because I know it's one argument for static compilation of binaries. We just bundle all the libraries in with it. Then you don't have to worry about what libraries are available, which version of libc is on the computer.
Well, because the DLL model is no longer required. We have the resources now. We don't need to dynamically link to things.
Conserving disk space.
Right. But see, this is the inevitable conclusion of that is, fine, we'll statically compile an entire browser into the app. And then you'll have everything you need. Sure. We don't have to worry about it.
It's like, I'm not using Chrome anymore. My PC is fine. Oh, wait, I'm using Teams.
Yeah.
Yep. And Skype.
Is this
anyway,
a tough?
I mean, I just think what's happening on the Apple side is a hint to what could be happening on the Windows side.
It's really interesting to watch Apple play this hand, because that they've been planning. This is strategic for, a decade. And they've been planning this. It's really interesting. When stable,
So you think when they went to the A series chips with the iPhone 4 or whatever that was, you're saying that at some point early on, they were like, man, we're doing this to the Mac.
We know that. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really that long ago?
Yeah. Well, depends which. it wasn't with the iPhone 7.
Yeah,
well, maybe, but it's been at least. Yeah. They said the M1's been 5 years in development.
Okay.
But I think even before then, it was always Steve Jobs' vision that Apple control the entire thing, right?
Well, it was also Steve Jobs' vision that they would build a factory right next to the ocean so they could turn salt water into.
Wasn't a bad idea. It just was ahead of its time. That's all,
Sure.
The part where it didn't work, it was a great idea.
Far from that.
Aside from the impossibility.
All this sand there. It's easy. It's all there, man.
Yeah. It's funny.
I feel like, well, it's fascinating to watch. It really is fascinating to watch. We were talking about this yesterday on Mac Break Weekly, and I was wondering if Tim Cook has that giant thing that had in Game of Thrones with all of the different castles and the troops, and he has a long stick that he could push the string, or does he do it all on the wall with tacks and string? Like, is there a big strategery wall with everything? Because you got to figure. I would love to be on the fly on the wall for just like these. All right, where they play it all out in their head, Yeah,
he's got an 84-inch Surface Hub from Microsoft.
There you go. Get the hub. It's just like an iPad, only it's a little bigger.
Big.
It
covers the whole wall.
It's a big iPad.
What do you mean I have to check this? I need to use it on the plane. But I won't use it during takeoff. I'm not a barbarian.
All right, the video is in. iJustine has now demonstrated how to use Bing. Would you like to watch iJustine?
No.
It irks me slightly that these big companies now, if you're not a YouTube influencer, you got a podcast? No. That ain't going to do it. That ain't good enough.
Is so incredible that's basically going to change the way that we search the internet. Now, search has been the same for like the past 20 plus years, for basically as long as I can remember.
Oh God, okay, that's enough.
She said like twice.
As long as I can remember, 20 years back.
She said like twice.
I've been doing this show as long as she can remember.
She can remember.
This show, this episode, I've been doing is all right.
Right.
So here's another thing that raised bursts of laughter when I mentioned it on Twit on Sunday, that Microsoft is out of the VR business.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, "Oh no!" They said they're they're still doing it.
Sure, they are. So Microsoft did come out and say, because of all the concern out in the public, and you got to understand they have customers actually using this stuff, right? So not so much mixed reality, but certainly HoloLens, and HoloLens 2 has been in market since 2019, I think, right? But they announced it at Mobile World Congress, right before the pandemic, year before the pandemic. So. They stepped away from whatever HoloLens 3 thing they were going to do. Most of the team has left the company. Alex is out, and there's all kinds of problems. So obviously, in this time of uncertainty, you have to come out and say, "Oh no, we still support it. We're going to provide clarity on it."
Just actually quite a long time. I know.
Here we go.
I'm sorry. Justine wanted to get back in on it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, they said the same thing about Windows Phone in 2015. Oh no, don't worry. No, we're going to come out with a new phone. You're going to love it.
Well, they're not talking at all about HoloLens 3. What they're saying is we're going to continue to support HoloLens 2.
That's right. Yeah, so saying that you're going to continue supporting a product that you're legally obligated to support is not really news, but they did say it. So I don't know. The MR stuff is the thing I'm not concerned about, but I find a little harder to understand. And the comment there was, it said Microsoft is committed to maintaining compatibility between the mixed reality toolkit and HoloLens 2, including through continued open source contributions, meaning we're not doing it, someone else is, when needed, to ensure that developers using the toolkit can continue to build for and deploy to HoloLens 2. So it seems like the mixed reality bit is only of interest where it, has something to do with HoloLens, basically. So I think the ship has sailed, I think is the way to say it. So it's been cortaned.
There's still a research group that's doing stuff for the Army.
Yeah. Although didn't Congress even say, yeah, that's it on that HoloLens thing. Forget it.
They said you can't buy anymore.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to do research.
Okay. Exciting.
I mean, they're not, let's put it this, they're not
allocated something like $400 million to a research budget.
Yeah.
Which from a military perspective is pennies.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is still more than most research groups have for any project. So although there's some folks doing some work somewhere, does that look like it has a consumer path at this point? I don't think so.
Mm-mm. Nope. So I'm surprised we got this far into the show before I voiced my excitement over Samsung's XR announcement, and I think we need to talk about it.
What is it?
So
XR, what's that?
Last week, how quickly we've forgotten. Samsung announced the new Galaxy S23 lineup, right? Whatever length that event was, if you scroll down to the last 9 minutes, you'll see the real announcement was that they're getting into XR. So XR is extended reality. This is some combination of what we would call AR, VR, MR, whatever.
All of the R's.
They don't. Yeah, they've got nothing to show you, but they carted out the CEO of Qualcomm because they make the chips. They got a vice president from Google up on stage because they're making the OS or the platform, the software platform. And someday they're going to have something, and it's coming. Here's the thing. This was a nonsense announcement to start with, but the what is he? The CEO of Samsung, that part of Samsung,
Miro,
right?
Yeah.
He agreed to an interview with the Washington Post, and this is an exact quote. This is what he said. Many different companies have been making these announcements about different realities. So we have also been making similar preparations, no less than any others.
Preparations.
So let me BS filter what that means. Other companies, Apple, are making this thing, so we're going to make one too. We don't have anything to announce yet because Apple's product is not out yet.
It's another one of those. I knew that.
This is something we talked about this last year, right? Or last show, where it's like everybody's pushed back on VR. Like there was hints that Apple was going to announce something for their next event, and then they came out point blank and said there's will be no announcements this year.
Yeah.
So
but it is coming this year. So it's happening. And when it happens, Samsung's going to be ready, baby.
Okay. I have on my wall, I could get it if I could just reach far enough, a Samsung VR visor.
Oh, the Odyssey thing. Yeah. No, the one for the phone.
The one you put the Galaxy in.
Yeah, that was a nice thing because you could put some bread on either side of that and make toast with it. Because that thing, there was nothing
kill your battery.
That would overheat your phone within minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. That was
they also, by the way, adopted Windows Mixed Reality. They had an Odyssey headset. In fact, they did 2 gens of it. The last one was kind of high res. It was like 1600 by something, 1600 by 1600 in each eye, I think. Yeah, look at that. So you had to put a Samsung Galaxy whatever in there, right? To make that make any sense.
Now we need.
Sorry, it's taking me a while to get this thing. This thing on, but I've had this.
Now we need the bag from CES, and he's completed the.
Right. This is like the Note 3 or something would fit inside this.
Yeah, it has this panel that you take off and you put your thing in.
You put your phone in there, yeah. Sure. You might as well just put your phone in the microwave. It's going to have the same effect.
I still have it. So, I mean, this was the state of the art. Yeah, this comes out. Actually, it looks better if you wear it without that, come to think of it.
Sure. It looks like the HoloLens for the art.
This could have been my Halloween outfit. We are coming. Oh, yeah. We are here to take over.
The way you say it is, I'm here from the future.
Hi. Did you know the future will mean we no longer have to use our own eyes?
And then you just walk into a wall.
Where are you?
God. Incredible.
How's your car warranty these days? This is yeah.
Yeah.
It's mixed reality though, because I can sort of see what's going on out there.
Oh, it's mixed, Leo. It's mixed at best.
So I'm getting the new S23. I wonder if
more
it'll
mixed all the time.
wonder if it'll fit in here.
Will it fit?
I don't know. When I get it,
I
I'll
bet
put
it doesn't. Honestly, like you get the Ultra, I assume.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
mean
I
it's
bet that
going to
does
be
not.
too big to fit in this old?
I bet it is. Yeah, I would think so. I don't remember how old that is, but what was the current Note or whatever at the time?
Yeah, it was definitely. Well, I don't know. Let me see if it says.
Well, what's it called?
It's the Gear VR, and it powered by Oculus.
Sure.
So this was pre-Meta.
Came out in 2015.
Jeez.
That's over 7 years ago. So
I'm just going to put this on the TV here.
Just as an artifact.
yes, definitely. That's good.
Just keeping an eye on you two.
That's great.
Hello?
Oh,
Hello?
I don't like it's looking at me in a weird way.
I have to. It's to fit the S8. Wow.
Yeah,
man.
jeez.
We're on
Take you in our
23.
chat room. Take who's in the chat room says it.
Yeah.
The S8.
And we're on 23.
What a world we live in. Everything old is new again.
Yeah.
All right, before we go to the, we got lots of other stuff to talk about. This is a rich
I know.
midden of news.
Didn't start out that way. I started on the notes this morning and I was like, oh man, what's going on here? But actually, it's been a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
I got somebody in our Twit forums complained about last week's Mac Break Weekly. They said, if you don't have any news, you should just not do the show.
Yikes. That's like, if you don't have anything nice to say.
Yeah.
So we have certain obligations. We have to keep doing the show, even if there's nothing to say. But you know what? You don't have to listen to it if you don't,
Yeah.
no requirement.
I've never known.
You don't
us
like to
run
get
out
into
of
that
things to
conversation.
say. I don't think that's.
No,
okay.
we have plenty to talk about always on all the shows, but that's fine.
You should have said we had plenty to talk about. We just chose not to. What's your problem?
Our show today is brought to you by a really cool company that I just discovered. If you've been, waiting for Microsoft Loop, the wait is, well, we don't know how long you're going to be waiting, but you don't need to because there's a better product out there. The only trouble I have when it comes to this product is describing what it does. It's called Miro, and I guess you could say it's kind of a whiteboard, but it can do anything. It can do anything. It can do mind mapping. It can do icebreakers. If you have meetings, you'll never have a meeting without Miro running again in your Zoom or your chat, because you can use it to time the meeting. You can have polls. You can have conversation starters. It adds so much to everything you do. And one of the great things about this infinite collaborative whiteboard, it's online, so anybody can use it anywhere they are. If you and your team are still, on calls going from tab to tab in your browser, launching this tool or that tool, meanwhile, your mind with the context shift is just losing those brilliant ideas. You're just leaking away. With Miro, that doesn't have to happen. Miro is a collaborative visual whiteboard that brings all your great work together, no matter where you are. Whether you're working from home, in a hybrid workspace, everything comes together in one place online. And it can even be asynchronous, because you can say, we have the notes from last week up there, and Joe can say, well, I wasn't there last week, but I added some thoughts, and it's so cool. Mike and I are going to be working on a Miro for our Ask the Tech Guys show, because we need somewhere a little bit less structured, a little more freeform, where we can brainstorm ideas. We can put stuff in there. It's visual. You can put anything, in there. Drag and drop. Insights, data, nothing's lost, nothing's forgotten. Use it to present, use it to collaborate, use it to brainstorm. And it can do pretty much anything. If you go to Miro.com/podcast, Go to the thing they call the Miroverse. That is the most amazing collection of templates by other users like you, and it'll give you a much better idea of the broad range of stuff, everything from a calendar to a Scrum puzzle. What a good idea. And incidentally, you can install these and use them in your own Miro board. And in fact, I'm going to tell you how you can get your own Miro board free at the end of this ad. This is so cool, but it solves this problem that I have, which is I don't know how to describe this to you, because Miro could be anything you need. It's a way for teams to be on the same page. It's a way to collaborate. It's a way to plan. Kanbans, you bet. You bet. You could do your Kanban board so you know who's doing what, when. If you're using Agile. Product strategy decider workshop. It's a really great way to take a meeting and coalesce it around, a purpose so that you don't waste time with meetings. This is crazy stuff. Here's a Beatles retrospective somebody put together that you can now just install it and then add it to yours. And if you make it Coldplay instead, you don't have, it doesn't, these are just starting play. Valentine's Day Love, a memory game. I don't understand this, but somebody in the UK government has put together a Harry Potter retrospective. Well, why not? Sign up for free right now. You can get your first 3 boards free, but you have to go. I want you to go to Miro.com/podcast. Miro.com/podcast. It's creative. It's collaborative. It's great for brainstorming. You can build out your brainstorm with sticky notes and comments and live reactions. There's a voting tool, a timer, which you will love using on your meetings. Say, we're going to get this done in 15 minutes. The timer has started. Express yourself in creative ways. Bring the whole group together around an idea with a quick wireframe, or you draw it with a pen tool, or put in images, a mood board, mock-ups on the Miro board. It could be anything. Miro users report saving up to 80 hours a year per user. That's 2 full weeks. That's your entire vacation every year by streamlining conversations and doing something everybody wants you to do. Cut down meetings. Just make them more effective. As a result, Miro gives your team the chance to always stay connected. Real-time information gives project managers, product leads, a bird's-eye view of the whole project so that nothing slips through the cracks. It's always there. It's persistent. Mike and I are going to use it constantly to prepare. We'll show you once we've got it's early stages, but once we get it going, I'm going to show you how we're using it for the show. Because that's a show where Mike and I kind of brainstorm ideas. We're putting together ideas. What about this? What if we do this? Where do we do that? Can we do this after that? That kind of thing. Get your first 3 boards absolutely free. Start working better. Miro.com/podcast. Miro.com/podcast. I don't know how to describe it, but I can tell you. It's a game changer, baby. This is a pretty exciting new product. Actually, it's not all that new. I think a lot of you know about it. Miro, I didn't, and I was so thrilled to play with it. Miro.com/podcast. Somebody says, Tabby approved in our IRC says, Miro, somebody from the UK government should do a Liz Truss retrospective. It would be short. Be brief.
See this lettuce? Yeah, not as long as that.
Not as long as a head of lettuce. Elon, to his credit, has outlasted the lettuce. Who knew?
Wow. I don't know. He's just as rotten, though, really.
Ooh. All right, let's talk developers.
Yeah.
What is up in the this is, by the way, this is one of the things we love having both you guys on. I know it's always been Paul's interest. It's certainly my interest. Richard, you're a developer, so I love it that we can get more of this in, to be honest.
I'm so excited to see the story. I told Richard about it. He's like, yeah, I knew about that weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I
did this show last year.
Yeah, thanks. So back in 2017, Microsoft provided an update to its strategy for its 3 .NET languages, C#, F#, and Visual Basic. And they didn't like the way I described it at the time, but basically Visual Basic has been kind of, bumped down a little bit. It's not getting new features. It's not going to be kept up functionally to date with C#. That's, they're just not doing it.
But you understand, like, for the .NET original framework for 4.8,
yeah,
C# stopped evolving for that stack too. Like it's C# 7.
Right.
So there's always an argument for what do you want from a language?
Yeah, right.
And reliability is kind of a thing, and consistency.
I can't go back and rewrite history, but I think, and I don't know that I'm blaming someone for this, but a big part of the problem, I think, is that real developers embrace C#, which, by the way, completely makes sense. But Microsoft stopped. Yeah, they stopped providing examples of everything in both languages, and so they were really kind of pushing people towards C#, which is the more kind of professional language or whatever.
Well, it's the one they're continuing to innovate on. If you care about new language features.
Yeah,
is C#
I like the fact that
intended to replace C++? Is it like they're?
It's think of it as Microsoft's Java. I think it's
okay. So it's
runtime enterprise.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It originally wasn't cross-platform. I mean, originally it was very much Windows Enterprise.
That's right.
But as the market changed and there was a need for it to be open source and cross-platform, they were able to redo it, and remarkably without having to replace all their tooling.
Yep.
That they if you want to talk about the phenomenon of remaking .NET into what was initially .NET Core and it's now just called .NET, it was that you could use the tools you already knew how to use. But we have a set of orphans. In that if you stuck with the original framework because you can't give up web forms or you can't give up
the 4X framework, the Windows only framework. Right?
Yeah, the 4.8 is kind of the last versions. The development across the board has largely stopped for that. They're going to do security patches and things like stuff is going to break, but they stopped making new versions of C# for it back 4 versions ago. Like they're at C# 11 if you're on Core, and they're at 7 if you're on 4.8.
Yep.
It just became too costly to try and build 2 versions of C#. And some of the things they wanted to do, starting around in the 9 timeframe, were just kind of impossible with the standard framework.
Why does a language have to change?
I think a great point.
Well, I mean, remember, I'm using a language that hasn't changed since 1984.
right.
Since
Consider
before
where
Justine
the Luddite
was
is
born.
coming from.
Yeah. But but that for me is a selling point because I know I can write something and I'm not going to have to get version 3 next year.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like your old C# code breaks. It's just that there's better ways to write C# in the later version.
That's not always the case with other languages. I mean, Python 3 broke a lot of Python 2.
Yeah, but they were also Python 2 was stuck, right? The same way that Angular 1.1 was stuck, and they had to make fundamental revisions to get to 2, and that meant breaking code.
Yeah.
And that's why they've stopped development on the 4.8 stack, is because they hit a point where they're stuck, where it's like it's too difficult to go further. So we're going to stay here. They have way too much of an install base to give any of it up.
Is it because
surrender anything?
Computers are changing, technology's changing? Concurrency, for instance, changed a lot of languages because they had to have a way to have threads that wouldn't break each other and so forth. So is it that's making it change?
I think the concurrency story, there were many different attempts to make better concurrency, right? And for a long time, the rule was pretty simple. There are 4 people that know how to do concurrency well, and 3 of them are lying.
Right.
And then Anders came up with async await,
right?
And his team. And async await is so good that even C++ has implemented it now.
Right.
Like other language, you've come up with a good construct when the other languages grab onto and go, that's a great way to express the intent of parallelism. That says this request can run independent of these other requests. Whether or not it actually parallelizes or not is a separate issue. Right? That it doesn't really matter, but at least as a programmer, you can declare independent executing blocks of code.
Yeah, you can return from a function before it's done.
Yeah.
basically.
Well, and more salient, it's like I've got these 6 things I need to do.
Yeah.
They're not dependent on each other, but they all have to be completed before I can go to the next step. So why would I do them serially when I can fire all 6 of them off at once and they can come back in any order? And once I have them all, I can complete.
Is that async await is one of the stumbling blocks I had because I'm an idiot. But when I went to UWP and was working in that environment, I found that to be a little challenging. But is that, I'm not even sure if I was just doing C#. So is async await something that's available in VB.net or whatever we're calling that now? So C# only. So that's an example of one thing that's only C#.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to that very point, and then F#'s off on its own land, right? I mean, it came later to the game. What's annoying you the most, Paul, I think, is that C# and VB.net started at the same time. Arguably, VB.net is older because it came from Visual Basic. Right. And I was a VB developer back in the 90s. And when .net came along, I thought, wow, I think VB.net's for me. And then I realized it wasn't VB, and the common syntax confused me. And so switching to C# was easier.
It was definitely easier because, again, for all the documentation reasons, and you might as well just.
I wasn't writing VB.
You're biting the bullet anyway, Yep. And plus, you could use, Windows Forms and still do that kind of visual part of it if you wanted, but with a more sophisticated language.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anything about F# or functional programming. Although I've looked at the code and it's familiar looking, which is a little surprising to me. Let me give you my completely uneducated, and I know nothing about it, view of what I think it might be, which is that languages like C++ rather went overboard with the OOP stuff. And this is a way to, like an OOP, in C# in C++, you would have classes, which are basically structures with additional things going on. And this is a way to have functions as a first-class citizen, a sort of in a OOP-like, language. Is that roughly
from an encapsulation perspective? We don't bother with the inheritance of polymorphism, nor do we, for the most part, in C# these days either, right? Like there are both ways to create side effects that make people sad.
Exactly.
So that's a good way to put it. But when you think functional, what you think is immutable. I load a value into a variable and it never changes. If I need to change it, I have another call to a different variable.
Oh, that's
right. I mean, and again, these are all elements that are memory inefficient but reliable.
Rust does this a little bit too, right? This notion of immutable variables
is a good idea.
Yeah,
as long as you're not resource constrained.
Okay. Right? I've not looked into F# per se, but I'm not sure I know why. I don't know why I would. I guess I can't.
There are certain tasks that are very well suited to F#.
Okay.
Handling stream flows and things work extremely well.
Interesting.
Living in a sort of non-deterministic models help. Like these are all part and parcel with it.
Is that a side effect of being functional? I mean, functional languages seem to love streams.
Because they are good at them.
They're good at them.
Yeah.
The idea of, the fundamental idea of functional languages is same input always gives you the same output, right? It's predictable.
Determinism.
It's determinate.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's F#'s chief paradigm, right? It's functional. That's the whole point. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although the amazing thing, like we talk about the profound thing that happened with Don Simon Co. when they wrote this thing, is that they managed to get a functional language to compile to IL.
Yeah,
what's IL?
The intermediary
language for .NET.
Intermediary layer that runs against the common runtime of .NET.
So it's a front end for .NET.
Well, this has always been the claim of fame for .NET for the common language runtime, is that you could have a variety of languages. Right. On day one in 2002, when they first shipped .NET, their pitch line was 21 languages, one platform.
Right. One of them was COBOL, if I remember correctly. Right.
And still is. You can buy COBOL.NET from Fujitsu to this day.
It's the same case for Java, the JVM. A lot of languages, Scala, Clojure, compiled to JV, Java.
Eventually, I mean, Java's original pitch was any platform, one language.
Right. Once, run everywhere. Yeah.
That was their idea. Now, most of those languages didn't make it out of V1, but some of them did. And F#'s the one that came along later as this exploration in functionality living in the .NET stack.
Right.
So,
and it's an achievement, but it seems to be a niche achievement. There's only so many F# developers out there.
yeah. Supposedly it's seen great growth of the past couple of years, but of course, when you're small, that's not so super hard. But yeah, I don't quite understand it. Like I said, this announcement made me want to look into it a little bit more. But Microsoft has these 3 languages, and I think as far as the update on the language support, nothing has changed really, the language strategy, except that now they've kind of formally posted these documents to, I think, probably Microsoft Learn or whatever. Whereas in the past, they'd had a blog post, and when people would ask, well, what are you doing around these languages? They would point people at this thing that was more and more out of date. And so now they're like, look, we're gonna formally put this up in a place that it will always be there. We can point to it and we can keep it up to date if we have to. But like F#, you can't use F# and things like any of these frameworks like WinForms, WPF, UWP, any of that stuff. This is a completely different.
So the real first-class language for that is still C++, C#.
C#.
Okay.
Yep. And for other things too, like ASP.NET and Blazor and whatever else. Right?
If you're going to chase language fads, somebody's saying, I think he's right in the Discord, that safety is the new fad and Rust is the new fair-haired boy. Is there anything comparable in the
Rust is so low level though, right? Rust is like you're writing a platform or a device driver or something like that.
You could have been writing in C, but C, C's mantra is it's your foot,
right? And shoot it at will.
Yep.
And Rust gives you a few parameters around that to make that the immutability mindset, like these kinds of good ideas for modern development.
Right. It's your foot.
It's your foot.
Shoot it if you need to.
That's a good name for a book. It's your foot. The programmer's guide to C.
All right, a few more company earnings came in. We had Microsoft's last week, actually 2 weeks ago now. Microsoft was the first to start the parade. Now we got Amazon, Apple, Google, and Meta. Anything you want to say about it?
Amazon, I need, listen, I have trouble with math, but the one bit of math that I do regularly is every quarter I do math related to finances. So some company made an net income of something on some amount of revenue, and I can compare it to the numbers from a year ago, and I can tell you what it went up or down percentage-wise very easily. In the year-ago quarter, Amazon posted a profit this is a net income, of $14.3 billion. In the current quarter, the previous quarter, it was a net income of only $300 million. Trying to figure out the percentage decline year over year through me. It took me an hour because I couldn't believe this number. That's a decline of 4,700%. It's like a crazy number. It's like, I'm like, no, that can't be right. Like revenues were up 8%. That's a normal number,
Yeah.
So I had trouble with that one. That was entertaining. So that took me a long time. That was a tough day. Apple revenues were only down 5%. I mean, honestly, this is a company that made $117 billion in revenues.
Right.
They're going to be okay. A lot of their business was down. Obviously, the whole world is down. I can't, what are you going to say about that?
Yeah.
Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, their net income revenues were up 1%. Like they actually saw a little bit of a bump there, which I thought was kind of interesting. Let me see if I have the figure for advertising since we talked about this. Yeah, advertising accounted for 78% of all of Google's revenue. So there you go. But they saw declines as well, in certain parts of the business. Whatever. Obviously, I don't think their hardware business is floating that company. And then Meta had better than expected earnings. In fact, their earnings were so good compared to what people thought was going to happen, even though revenue dropped by 4%, that they almost earned back all of the stock price that they had lost in recent months. Wow. And it was some billions and billions of dollars because Wall Street was happy that things weren't worse.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But they're also having problems. So everyone is.
It's challenging economic times.
Exactly right.
For companies making billions of dollars.
Yep. So now I'm going to do something really unexpected, and I'm going to compliment Zoom. And maybe that shouldn't be so unexpected, because honestly, if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that when you have to have these online meetings, as we do, there are good solutions and there are bad solutions. And, Zoom, I give them some credit. Like their stuff has always worked really, really well.
They stepped up during the pandemic.
Yeah. But the reason I'm complimenting them is because they just announced layoffs, and they are laying off 15% of their workforce. It's about 1,300 people.
That's big.
Yep. And
percentage-wise,
the way they're
huge.
handling,
I think might be the largest.
the way they're handling it, to me, really stands out compared to the way other companies have handled this kind of thing. I felt, people always throw out these like phrases like I'm humbled by blah 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 or whatever. This is the saddest thing you have to do.
It's
I
really
feel like
hard
Zoom,
if you've ever had to do it.
I know, no,
it's the hardest thing in the world to do. But nobody did it worse than the PagerDuty CEO, who after her big firing all these people, talked about how well the company was doing, and then quoted Martin Luther King.
Oh boy! Well,
that was
you
pretty
should read.
bad.
You should read the announcement that Zoom CEO Eric Yuan.
I read it.
I think
it was
it's
impressive.
Incredible.
I agree, and he took a 98% pay cut.
That's right, and he did. That's the thing. He's like, I am accountable for the mistakes. And by the way, the mistakes were that thing I've been talking about. This is the other thing I loved about this. He goes, you know what? We overhired.
Yeah.
Like, we should have known better.
Very honest.
Yep. I thought this was incredible. So he said, I'm accountable for these mistakes. I want to show my accountability, not just in words, like all of my other CEO buddies around big tech. He didn't say that. That was me. But to that end, he's reducing his salary, like you said, by 98% and forgoing his corporate bonus. Members of his executive leadership team will also reduce their salaries by 20% and will also forfeit their bonuses. Imagine you're at Microsoft and you just got laid off, and then you look at all the billions they're pouring into OpenAI. And I'm not saying Microsoft shouldn't be doing any of these things. I'm just saying it's got to kind of leave you with a sour feeling watching all the money they're spending as they're getting rid of you because they don't have the money for you. Whereas you look at something like Zoom and you're like, okay. I just feel like this is a nice, responsible, well, it's not nice, but it's a responsible way to handle something terrible. More so than maybe we've seen from some of the other.
We talked last week about how IBM did wage cuts at the senior level, but in the process, or not IBM, Intel, but in the process of avoiding layoffs. It's like, we don't want to lose anybody.
Yeah,
everybody's taking a 5% pay cut.
Right. Yeah.
Go up the senior stack, it's a bigger cut. And now they're talking about bonuses as well.
Yeah, actually, I thought that was good too.
I think Google set the record when you're cutting people off via email. That's grim.
Yeah, it's not good.
I know enough folks that got laid off at Microsoft where it's like, hey, you're still being paid for the next 2 months. You have access to the gal.
Right.
Go find yourself a job inside the company because there are some other jobs, or you go elsewhere. So they've got some time. Yeah. And
the folks at Zoom are going to get paid for 6 more months.
Yeah, see, to me, that's better than even the pay cut on the CEO. What are you going to do for the people you're laying off? Are you going to really take care of them?
Especially when it's no fault of their own, right? I mean, that's the big thing you got from the Zoom guy was, these are great people. We screwed up. They're losing their jobs not because of anything they've done.
Because of what we did. Exactly. I thought that was just, thank you. Finally, someone stepped up and just exactly right. Took responsibility. And, everyone's sad. We have to lay off people. We get that. And I mean, in other words, Sundar Pichai or, whoever. We talked about Satya Nadella flying to Davos on a private jet, right before the layoffs.
And paying for a Bono concert.
Seriously, or whatever. That's gotta bother people. It's gotta. It's hard. Taste. Anyway, I just wanted to point that I don't, I guess, care about Zoom one way or the other, but I thought this hit the right tone exactly. I thought this was really well done.
Yeah. We care about Zoom. I mean, we're all in on Zoom now, and they've been really a great partner. And
I mean, it's not part of my focus. I don't, Zoom,
we
whatever.
We make you use Zoom every week. I'm sorry.
I know, it's force fed down my throat, Leo. I don't know.
We used to use
now I
Skype.
have to use a different version of Zoom.
Gotta say, we used to use Skype, but
yeah, we did.
Could have been Teams.
Yep.
Zoom treated
which
us
I like
better.
because Skype was originally written in Delphi, and I think we can all agree if everything was written in Delphi, this world would be a better place.
Yeah. Niklas Wirth never had problems with streams or concurrency.
Sure.
More Xbox. Ooh, something big just happened?
I just realized I screwed up the note.
Okay. Let's talk about the Xbox, baby. Paul Thurrott has the deets.
This is I just, in the same way that I've just lost my patience with Samsung, I think I've pretty much had it with Sony. I can't, this company makes me insane. And it's not just the Spider-Man movies, like seriously enough, but
it's not just the Spider-Man movies. No,
it's they've stood up to regulators around the world and demanded that, my God, save our dominant business from this Microsoft company that wants to remain number 4, by acquiring this company. They've done everything they can to squash this. So the FTC was like, yeah, okay, Sony, for some reason, we will protect this Japanese company against this American conglomerate. We're gonna do what you want. So Microsoft subpoenaed them as part of their defense in the FTC case, and Sony has tried to delay this 4 times. So Microsoft has quietly said nothing for 3 of those times, and then it said, you know what? This is just stalling. We need to get this done. So no more extensions. Let's not do it. So Sony then said, well, I mean, now they just don't want to provide evidence that would, because of course it will help Microsoft. There's no logical reason to prevent this deal from happening.
Right.
So now they're ignoring.
They're only accusing Microsoft of things that Sony actually does.
Exactly. Like, what if they do to us what we do to everyone else?
Yeah.
They have the most exclusives of anybody, right?
But it's not even close. They have the most exclusives of everyone else combined. Yeah. It's insane. So as it turns out, they're also ignoring subpoenas from the FTC.
Oh, boy.
Nice.
So they've asked the FTC to, confidentially, by the way, they didn't want this to get out, to limit or quash the Microsoft subpoena and withdraw as mute its motion for an extension of time.
It does feel like not fighting fair. It really does. I mean,
they're just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I just can't.
You got to think it is the U.S. corporate branch of Sony being told by drag this out as long as possible, and they've gone too far now.
You know what? In the 1990s, when Netscape went to the U.S. government and said, "Hey, we're getting beaten up by this giant 800-pound gorilla," you know what they made? Okay, yeah, it was a good case to be made. Mm-hmm. This is not Netscape. This is a giant international corporation that dominates this industry. What are you doing?
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's almost like Microsoft went to the courts and said, we're going to put a stop to this Brave thing because, I don't know, if they get popular, that could be a big browser. We got to stop that from happening. It's crazy. Like, it makes no sense.
How they're getting away with it, I'm astonished.
I don't know. Well, the problem for Microsoft, of course, is that regulators in some of the major countries, like the United States and the UK and of course the EU, are all like, they're trying to get concessions out of this. So the CMA, which is the Competition and Markets Authority, which is their regulatory body, has issued a kind of an initial finding and said they have concerns about this deal, which they feel could result in higher prices, fewer choices, or less innovation for UK gamers. But the interesting thing here is we've talked about some of the concessions and how obvious those concessions are. And one of their ideas was, what if you just spin off Call of Duty?
Right.
Just, you can have Activision Blizzard, but you can't have Call of Duty. Now, here's why that bothers me is a strong term, but here's what's interesting about that to me. Microsoft has argued repeatedly that this is not about Call of Duty. This is about getting into mobile gaming.
Right.
Sony appears to only be worried about Call of Duty. So maybe we spin off Call of Duty. What if that's what has to happen for this deal to go through?
Would that be acceptable, you think?
Well, what's Activision without Call of Duty worth? Like, how do you figure that out?
They still have a lot of other titles. Obviously, Call
of Duty.
But
this is a huge deal, right? Yeah. This is a lot of money. So
it's $1 billion title.
Yeah, how many tens of billions of dollars come off of the asking price?
So here's the question: is Microsoft acquiring them because of Call of Duty?
They claim no.
They're acquiring them for other reasons, for the team, for the IP, other IP.
They say primarily it's because they have no position at all in mobile gaming. Right. They want to get into that part of the market.
Could we keep the mobile Call of Duty? Well, that doesn't make sense. You'd have to keep the whole thing together.
But obviously, excuse me, having whatever. Hello, I'm getting verklempt here. Whatever Activision Blizzard franchises on Game Pass is huge for Microsoft, and it would be. I don't know how you could say with a straight face that did not matter. I mean, Call of Duty matters. There's no doubt about it. They can claim otherwise, but they want all those major franchises to be on Game Pass. That makes Game Pass more valuable. It gives them that competitive advantage that they want against their entrenched competitor, who, by the way, like we've said, has more exclusives than anybody. So we'll see. But that's an interesting wrinkle because it kind of calls Microsoft to the table on that comment they made where it's like, well, it's not about Call of Duty. It's like, well, good, get rid of Call of Duty. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So
there's a duel going on there, but you got to know these subpoenas are about talking about exclusivity, basically making the FTC look at how unfair the field actually is.
Right, right. I think this should right.
Play here is okay, we're all in on no exclusivity.
Yep.
Let's make it apply to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I agree with that 100%.
Ooh, that would sting.
Yeah.
The only way I can get to see Last of Us is if I subscribe to HBO Max because I don't have a PlayStation.
It's coming out on Xbox soon.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I checked, but that's a good example. I was very frustrated.
How many years later? What year did that?
Like 5 years later, something like that. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. It's supposed to be a good one, but
I look forward to playing it.
I do too. Yeah, I look forward to watching it. We'll see if I watch it and it's interesting. Maybe I'll play it too. I don't know.
I have been watching.
It's episode 3 is perhaps one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Is Nick Offerman in that episode?
Yeah, that's the one he's in.
Yeah, okay.
It's completely out of place with the other episodes.
Yeah.
Because really, it's pretty much the game, and you really feel like, oh, this is a TV show made out of a game because there's quests. First, you need a battery. Nice. And then you go get the battery.
It actually has the view down the gun. It's like the guy walking down the...
It's almost on rails, except for this episode 3, which in fact breaks the canon.
Right.
And is as if this guy said, I got one great TV episode in me.
Do we know how long will this thing be when it's done?
Wow, Last of Us is 10 years
12?
old, says Out of Sync. 10 years old. We should know. I'm sure somebody knows.
It's got to be 10. I'm guessing 10 or 12, right? It's probably somewhere in there.
Well, they're shorter these days, There's a lot of 8 episode series and stuff like that.
Because I don't want to watch it till I can watch it all back to back. That's my big thing.
It says 9.
9. Weird.
9.
9.
Okay. So they've done 3?
5 comes out. 5 comes out soon because
that's great. So one more month.
Early Friday, I think.
Get about a month.
Yeah. Usually it's every Sunday. It's a typical HBO, I'm very curious if it will transcend. It's beautifully shot. This one episode is like, oh my God. And I'm just curious if it can transcend though the game, because otherwise it's kind of just the game.
Interesting.
And that's not a great, games have a different trajectory than.
But I think that's the interesting thing about this show is that it's supposed to adhere pretty closely to the game, and that's really never been done.
We'll see.
Except for Super Mario Brothers, obviously.
But not to spoil anything, but the ending of Last of Us was very powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope they get there then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to be interested to see how they contend with the video game ending.
Right.
Yeah, that will be interesting. Next episode is Thursday. That's episode 5, and then it'll be back to Sundays. So.
That was like back in the 90s. From the Earth to the Moon was on Sundays, if I remember correctly. Right. A lot of shows were like on HBO.
Game of Thrones. I would say you and Stephanie should just watch the first 3 and then stop.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. And I wish you didn't have to watch the first 2, but you kind of do to set up 3. And 3
sure.
is so good. And then you could just stop for a while.
I didn't have any problem with 4.
It's good. It's fine. It's just back to the.
I mean, we're right in the thick of Wednesday right now, so I don't want to screw that up.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to watch Wednesday. I'm saving that one. Yeah.
Jeez. I'm regressing here. I'm sorry.
By the way, Ben Shapiro didn't like episode 3 because the entire episode has no zombies.
Yeah.
which is why I
saw
liked
that.
it.
I saw that headline.
One of the things I liked. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a zombie fan.
Yeah.
Then what are you watching this damn show for? Oh, I'm sorry. You're not a zombie fan.
I am not a zombie fan, and the only reason I watched it is because people said episode three. So I did, and I
Zombies
agree.
are a vehicle to tell stories. It's like sci-fi in general, right? It's just like a vehicle to tell stories that are really about mankind or whatever.
Well, and that's what's great about episode 4 is that it's
the
dark side of man in a
zombie munching.
There's no zombies in 4 either, are there?
What is this show about?
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that because it's more about the enemy isn't just the zombies. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, how people respond to adversity.
Yeah,
right.
There was a professor, still is at Berkeley, called Alan Dundas, who was an expert on the sick joke cycles. I don't know if we have any sick jokes these days, but there used to be dead baby jokes. Remember that? And there were, and it was his thesis, and he had pretty good arguments for it, that sick jokes were the way we handled psychologically difficult issues. And dead babies was during the whole abortion debate. Elephants in the refrigerator. There's a whole elephant in the refrigerator joke cycle. He says that was about racism and dealing with the emerging black culture in America. And so it's very interesting. Anyway, I'm of the opinion now that instead of sick jokes, we have zombies. We have that these horror things are a way of in our plumbing our deepest
It makes
fears.
our current world look less awful because we're not eating each other's brains or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting.
So you're right. I mean, I think the zombies are more than just about, the undead.
I mean, but everyone likes a good zombie bite,
I'm a vampire guy. I just got to say, I like eternal life, personally. Just saying.
Oh.
Given the choice, I like it. And vampires were hot for a while, and now not so much zombies. And that's how it was hard to get Lisa to watch it. She said, I love The Walking Dead, but I'm done.
I didn't watch Breaking Bad for 2 years because it was about a guy that made drugs. Like, why would anyone want to watch this?
So not about a guy who makes drugs.
No, I know that, but you understand from the outside, you're like,
exactly.
We're going to glorify a guy that makes crystal
Last
meth
of
or
Us
whatever.
is, not about zombies. Yeah.
No, it's one of the best shows ever made.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm very curious what you think of episode 3. I think it's right up there with Breaking Bad.
Yeah, okay.
It's that good. What else is new in Xbox?
Yeah, so usually every month what we get is new Game Pass titles at the beginning of the month and then in the middle of the month for the second half of the month. And they just announced new titles now, which is, as you'll notice, we're only in week 2. And that makes me wonder, even though this is a short month, if we're not going to have 3 sets of games, which has happened every once in a while. And if you look at the release dates, these games all come out between the 9th and the 16th, with the exception of one game, which comes out on the 21st. So it's possible we'll see a third set of games. So there are 2 here that I think are of note. There are several of them. Madden NFL 23, obviously. Console and PC on February 9th. That's going to be huge. And then Shadow Warrior 3. I didn't even know there was a Shadow Warrior 2. But Shadow Warrior, unless I'm completely screwing this up, this was like a Doom Engine game from a million years ago. Wasn't it Shadow Warrior? Like the original one? I think this is, I think so. Shadow Warrior. Listen, I'm completely.
This is the fun thing about Game Pass. It introduces you to a whole new category of material.
I think, or like an Apogee, like a whatever
Commander Keen and the Lost Planet Airmen.
Well, not that far back, but like a oh god, I can't remember the names of games. Like there were games like Blood, and it was like the Apogee version of like the Doom engine or whatever.
Huh.
I don't remember. I think it dates back that far. I think that's what that is. Oh, like Duke Nukem, like those type of games, like the 3D version.
Duke Nukem.
Those kind of games. Anyway, I that's how I take that. Anyway, the interesting thing to me is just that it's coming. Like they announced this now. That's kind of an off time for that. So we shall see. And excuse me. Sony has raised its sales. PlayStation 5 sales targets for this coming year, and also its financial expectations. And this is basically them saying, "Hey, look, I think we got past that supply issue that was dogging us for the past 2 years, and PlayStation sales are starting to take off, so they can keep dominating the industry and prevent us from getting Call of Duty." So that'll be fun. So they're doing that. And then actually, arguably the company that really does dominate our industry is Nintendo, which is kind of the Disney of video gaming. They actually revised their Switch sales forecast downward for the second time in the past 6 months, but only by 1 million units. So this is a console that is now the third best-selling video game machine of all time. It surpassed Game Boy and the Sony PlayStation 4 in the most recent quarter. So it's in third place behind PlayStation 2 is like the all-time winner. And then what's number 2? It's probably, what is number 2? I'm not even sure. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But it's astonishing how many of these things they have sold. And it's possible if they're already talking about maybe transitioning to the next gen something. But I bet if they released a 4K version of the Switch, they could keep this thing going. I mean,
I'd buy it.
I'd
buy it in a heartbeat.
I think a lot of people would buy it, and you could get this thing in the first place all time. All they have to do is sell 30 million more consoles. So it's possible. I'm just saying, a couple of years, they would do it. Anyhow, they're doing fine. They're kind of like Apple. Like, things are down a little bit, but they're down a little bit when you're awesome. It's like, yeah, it's okay. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Not that bad. You can get Hogwarts Legacy on the Switch.
Okay.
I don't know how good it would be.
Is there a Spider-Man game I could play on the Switch?
I guarantee you. No, well, I bet you.
Those bastards.
I don't know. I was that was my my quarantine game. My pandemic game was Animal Crossing: New Horizons on the Switch.
Right.
Because it was a better world.
I was going to say, if there's anything you want to get as far as you can from the terribleness of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just stay home and.
Mm-hmm.
But Nintendo owns the handheld market. I mean, number one is the DS.
Yeah.
Then the Switch. Then the Game Boy.
Yep. Okay.
But Switch is coming on strong for DS just because it was around for so long. But Switch is coming on strong. Right. Yeah.
Yep. Then you go down to Game Boy Advance.
Right.
Still 80 million. And then you get to the PlayStation Portable. Like, it's all Nintendo and handheld.
It always blows
I always thought
me
the
away.
PlayStation Portable was going to be huge.
I'm so old that Mario was not in my purview, right?
Yeah.
But it always blows me away how people feel about Mario. I mean, that is culturally,
right?
That's Shakespeare for this generation.
So that was same thing with me. And I worked at Toys R Us when that game came out. And I remember some guy called and he said, "Hey, I was just in New York and I saw this video game console from a company called Nintendo, which I knew from video game arcade machines, like arcade machines." I'm like, okay. And he says, you can play games against a robot and you can shoot the screen with a gun.
What? How could it be?
I'm like, that's nonsense. I've never heard of such a thing. I'm sorry, we do not have that. And then the next day or 2 days later, we got this huge shipment. And there was a version that came with that stupid little plastic robot gun that would move like little pucks around.
Yep.
And you could play Duck Hunt with a gun,
So
But the big game was Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
And I went through after I got married, I bought I bought a new Nintendo and I played the first 3 Super Mario Brothers in order. And then I gave it to someone I worked with so they could give it to their kid. I just wanted to kind of experience it. And I was like, it's cool.
I predate Mario. So
as do
my
I.
original character.
Yeah, we all
Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong.
That's right.
There's a big scandal in Donkey Kong
and
country.
the original Mario Brothers, which was basically a Donkey Kong type game,
Yeah. No, the character you're playing in Donkey Kong is Mario.
Is Mario, yeah. That's right.
Yeah. And you are rescuing the princess.
Yeah, I guess it is the same. It's just you got a gorilla throwing barrels at you.
It's just one screen.
It's just one screen.
That's back before when Mario is just the protagonist.
I think Mario Brothers was one screen too, if I'm not mistaken.
But Donkey Kong's Capcom, right?
No, that was Nintendo.
It was Nintendo. Oh.
Yep.
Very big controversy in the Donkey Kong world right now. Are you following this?
So when ColecoVision came out, one of the things that was weird about that was they got, Atari had all the big arcade games. So Coleco had to license all the kind of second tier games. So it was like Nintendo and whatever the other titles were. But they were cool games, like things like Zaxxon and Donkey Kong.
Great game.
I
love.
Yeah, there was some great games, but there were games that I was just unfamiliar with, or less familiar with than the stuff that was on Atari.
Yeah,
it was good.
Was there a donkey in Donkey Kong? I don't.
There was no donkey.
There was no
I don't know.
donkey.
That was a Japanese transposition of words, that didn't make any sense.
No
Monkey Kong, basically.
So the guy, one of the guys who at the time had the world record in Donkey Kong,
yeah, I saw this,
has been now revealed to have perhaps been a cheater.
Right. For the second time.
Well, there was always a controversy. In fact, I think there was a lawsuit over libel for calling him that.
Right.
But now pictures have emerged of him standing in front of his, high-scoring machine,
but this is
with a different joystick.
If there was a picture of me in the grassy knoll, did I shoot the president? What does that mean?
Yes.
I was just having a sandwich and watching the movie.
Just having a sandwich, man.
I don't know. It's a little thin, but
Billy Mitchell's a huge cheater, man, says the chat.
They really want to take this guy down. It's sort of amazing to me. Was he a little too flashy or something? Like, people can't stand this guy.
I don't get it because I didn't follow this when it happened.
Yeah.
But it's apparently a big deal, and
it is a big deal. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Brianna Wu because she's like she's like into these Reddit. Here he is in a picture from the he set the record at the Florida Association of Mortgage Brokers convention. He was there. He was there. As one does. He was their special celebrity guest. There he is in the right with a tie. But if you zoom in on the machine, as anybody who played Donkey Kong knows, that is a non-standard stick.
Yep.
It is not the usual joystick.
We only had a 4-position stick, and it wasn't red.
That's exactly what they're saying. Is that
I know
this might have been an 8-position stick, which would have given him an advantage.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
What a world we live in.
It's the worst.
What a world we live in. Hey, everybody. Leo Laporte here. I am the founder and one of the hosts at the Twit Podcast Network. I want to talk to you a little bit about what we do here at Twit, because I think it's unique. And I think for anybody who is bringing a product or a service to a tech audience, you need to know about what we do here at Twit. We've built an amazing audience of engaged, intelligent, affluent listeners who listen to us and trust us when we recommend a product. Our mission statement as Twit is to build a highly engaged community of tech enthusiasts. Well, already your ears should be perking up at that, because highly engaged is good for you. Tech enthusiasts, if that's who you're looking for, this is the place. We do it by offering them the knowledge they need to understand and use technology in today's world. And I hear from our audience all the time, part of that knowledge comes from our advertisers. We are very careful. We pick advertisers with great products, great services, with integrity, and introduce them to our audience with authenticity and genuine enthusiasm. And that makes our host-read ads different from anything else you can buy. We are literally bringing you to the attention of our audience and giving you a big, fat endorsement. We like to create partnerships with trusted brands who are in it for the long run, long-term partners that want to grow with us. And we have so many great success stories. Tim Broom, who founded IT Pro TV in 2013, started advertising with us on day one, has been with us ever since. He said, quote, "We would not be where we are today without the Twit Network." I think the proof is in the pudding. Advertisers like IT Pro TV and Audible that have been with us for more than 10 years, they stick around because their ads work. And honestly, isn't that why you're buying advertising? You get a lot with Twit. We have a very full-service attitude. We almost think of it as kind of artisanal advertising, boutique advertising. You'll get a full-service continuity team. People who are on the phone with you, who are in touch with you, who support you with everything from copywriting to graphic design. So you are not alone in this. We embed our ads into the shows. They're not added later. They're part of the shows. In fact, often they're such a part of our shows that our other hosts will chime in on the ad saying, "Yeah, I love that." Or just the other day, one of our hosts said, "Man, I really got to buy that." That's an additional benefit to you because you're hearing people our audience trusts saying, "Yeah, that sounds great." We always over-deliver on impressions, so you know you're going to get the impressions you expect. The ads are unique every time. We don't pre-record them and roll them in. We are genuinely doing those ads in the middle of the show. We'll give you great onboarding services. Ad tech with pod sites that's free for direct clients. Gives you a lot of reporting, gives you a great idea of how well your ads are working. You'll get courtesy commercials. You actually can take our ads and share them across social media and landing pages. That really extends the reach. There are other free goodies too, including mentions in our weekly newsletter that's sent to thousands of fans, engaged fans who really want to see this stuff. We give you bonus ads and social media promotion too. So if you want to be a long-term partner, introduce your product to a savvy, engaged tech audience, visit twit.tv/advertise. Check out those testimonials. Mark McCrary is the CEO of Authentic. You probably know him, one of the biggest original podcast advertising companies. We've been with him for 16 years. Mark said the feedback from many advertisers over 16 years across a range of product categories, everything from razors to computers, is that if ads and podcasts are going to work for a brand, they're going to work on Twitch shows. I'm very proud of what we do because it's honest, it's got integrity, it's authentic, and it really is a great introduction to our audience of your brand. Our listeners are smart, they're engaged, they're tech savvy, they're dedicated to our network, and that's one of the reasons we only work with high integrity partners that we've personally and thoroughly vetted. I have absolute approval on everybody. If you've got a great product, I want to hear from you. Elevate your brand by reaching out today at advertise@twit.tv. Break out of the advertising norm. Grow your brand with host-read ads on twit.tv. Visit twit.tv/advertise for more details, or you can email us advertise@twit.tv if you're ready to launch your campaign now. I can't wait to see your product. So give us a ring. Okay. Hey, just a real quick plug. If you noticed, that picture was in the Club Twit Discord. This is the hang for people really in the know. We love hanging out in here. This is one of the benefits of being a member of Club Twit. $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all the shows, plus shows you can't get any other way. Well, actually, that's really not true. You can. You could pay $2.99 a month for Paul Thurrott's Hands on Windows, for instance. But if you join the club for $7, you get that and everything else. Hands on Macintosh with Michael Sargent, the Untitled Linux Show with Jonathan Bennett, the Giz Fizz, Stacy's Book Club. Win to a Dow will be doing a Ask Me Anything tomorrow in our club. She's the host of All About Android. On Friday, day after tomorrow, I'll be interviewing Daniel Suarez. Now, that's going to be in the, that'll come out as a triangulation episode. Everybody will get to see the episode, but club members will be able to ask questions directly of Daniel. We'll do it live in the club. That's just an example. We're trying to give the club benefits, give you a reason to join. And the reason we want you to join is it makes such a difference to our bottom line. If, 5% of the people who listen to this show, only 5% join the club, we wouldn't have to sell advertising. We would literally be able to continue on, add new shows, grow, pay the staff, pay the light bill, pay the rent. That's all. It all needs 5%. It's less than 1% right now. We'd love to get it up to 5%. And if it were 10%, we'd move this whole thing to Barbados.
I like it.
Including all the hosts. No, there's about 700,000 unique listeners to all of our shows a month. If we could get 35,000 club members, that would be huge. We only have 6 or 7 right now. So I want you to join. If you listen to the shows, not all of you can afford it, and that's why we'll always continue to offer shows like this free, ad supported. That's in the, and you know what? If we had 35,000 members and we didn't have to sell ads, we'd still offer you the show for free because I don't want to take that away from you. But we do add a lot of value for people who are willing to give us just $7 a month. It helps us a lot. I think it's well worth it. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. Find out all about it. Yes, you can buy Hands on Windows for just $2.99 a month through the, I think that's through the Apple Store. And if you want to do that, that's fine. I understand. Paul does a great job. It's well worth it, Hands on Windows, but a couple bucks more, and we get you in the club. And that makes a big difference overall. It means I could buy another bottle of Middleton next week. Time for the back of the book. Tip of the week, Mr. Thurrott.
Yeah. I was hoping to tell you how you could protect your privacy in Windows 11, but as it turns out, you can't. Because I don't know if this, I can't find, I was just looking for the link to this. There's a video on YouTube where people have put a network scanner on Windows 11 when it first boots up. And this thing starts phoning home like the second it comes online and never stops. So there's steps you can take, obviously, to limit the amount of data that you send to Microsoft and to third parties, because a bunch of it is through the advertising sponsorship stuff. And, this is something we discussed actually in Hands on Windows, and it's in the book. But the one thing I've kind of come to, which is really interesting, is I spent a bunch of time looking at the privacy settings in the Settings app in Windows 11, and going through it like kind of step by step, and you kind of collect this list of, well, what are the things you might want to turn off or at least detune as much as you can, right? You have to send basic telemetry data no matter what, for example. As it turns out, there's a screen in setup when you first set up Windows 11 where it says, here's your privacy settings. It's 3 scrolls you have to go through to get through it. So it's like location data, targeted advertising, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, that's the list. So if you're setting up a Windows 11 PC for the first time, you should still go look at privacy settings later. It's a lot of stuff. Most of the stuff is actually in that first screen. So kudos to Microsoft for making it that easy. I don't know that you want to turn off location settings. I guess that's the one I would probably personally leave on. Although I've been turning off location settings. I got to say, I get the Mexico weather in the widget in the corner now. Instead of my local weather.
See, that's worth it. Now that's a good reason.
And on more than one occasion, I looked down into the corner and been like, 70 degrees. Oh
no, not here. Not here.
I don't turn on location data for a desktop because I'm not going to move it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But you have to turn it on to get weather. It has to know where you are.
Yeah. Well, you can configure weather to be like, well, I want it to be for this
always
specific
there.
location.
Yeah,
you can do that.
Yeah, because you're not in Mexico. Of course, obviously, you can do that.
So that's kind of amusing. Like I don't know why it's stuck on Mexico, but
I wonder how many of those calls could be pie-holed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You could do a next DNS type thing, right? Where you just block network traffic. That gets tricky.
The question is, at some point, is it going to go, this is not a certified version of Windows? Like, what calls are actually?
Rafael Rivera, who I think you know, told me one time that when you do this to Windows 11, it just sits there and blunt force tries to keep sending it refuses to acknowledge the fact that it can't get through.
And that's what, I was thinking with a pie hole is like, I'm going to give you an IP. It's just going to be
and have it just fake it out. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Have it disappear into the ether. It's beautiful.
The client thinks it's great, but it's the whole thing. You're black holing the calls, just like you do for ads, right? It's the typical thing for a pie hole. So.
This is what I used to do when I signed up for things. I would use my friend's email address instead of mine because I didn't want to get emails. And
Bill G at Microsoft.com.
No, it's a guy I know named Bob. I'll just say that. And I saw him again a few years ago. And we were talking about tech stuff, and he says, it's crazy. He goes, I had to get rid of my email address because I kept getting all these marketing. And I was like, that's interesting.
Can't imagine how that would happen.
I hopefully nobody did that to you on purpose. That's crazy. So
God, nobody does that.
That's horrible. People do that to me, I have to say. They think they're just hysterical when they use my email address
to everything
to sign up for stuff. I just think that's a hoot. So.
Yeah, it's tough when your email address is your name and it's easy to guess. And well,
mine was in public forever. I actually had to move to a different address because of it.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah.
Well, I registered GUD.com.
Yeah.
In the 90s, and there are no 3-letter .coms left. I get offers on it, but it's basically a portable DDoS attack.
Yeah.
Like if I point my MX record at an IP, 5 to 10 million spam a month.
Right.
It's on every list because it's so old.
So
you should sell it.
Do you think that they go through all 3-letter domains, just brute forcing?
Apparently they're all registered.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's somebody at every one of them.
In theory. Yeah. So right now it's aimed at M365, but I remember signing up for a mail filtering service, and I called them in advance and said, listen, I got this domain. And they're like, it can't be that bad. It's like, well, I'm going to redirect it to you right now.
Is that
they just
26
went offline immediately.
What is that 26 cubed addresses? They're all .coms. Is that what it would be? Yeah. 3 letters, like 26 each. I always confuse which one's factorial and which one's cubed. Never remember that. Any other, you want an app? Do you have an app?
Yeah. So as we discussed earlier, you can only get into the Bing preview right now by
you saw Leo begging on his
selling
knees.
your soul. You can pull Leo and try to, just whatever. But there was another product they talked about during this event, and this is a new version of Edge, which is actually available now in the dev channel. So you can download this separately. You don't have to replace your current browser or your existing version of Edge. And don't do it because it's terrible. So I don't know how easy, I guess I can't really share my screen or whatever, but we had seen previously that Microsoft is going to move to curved edges on everything. And I'm talking like the inside of the window that displays the web page you're looking at has curved edges now. And there's curves everywhere. It's kind of weird looking, but there is a big Bing icon up in the toolbar that you cannot remove. If you mouse over it, it displays what's called the Discover pane, which is something you had to previously click on something to display. There's that kind of Edge sidebar thing, and it's one of the buttons in there. So now they're kind of pulling it out of that sidebar so that it's always available, even if you turn off the sidebar. And it's like the widgets thing in Windows 11, where it comes out even if you just, you go over to hit the menu thing, and it's like you miss it. Yep. And it's a little scary. But this is going to be.
So, is there over here? Is there a Bing? You talking about this sidebar?
Yeah. So if you click on the magnifying glass at the top.
Okay.
That's probably going to say Discover, right?
It says search. But,
yeah. So maybe it's the next one down. Try the next one down. That probably says Discover.
Yeah, that's Discover.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's what happens now there's above where the little dot is at the top. To the right of that now is a giant Bing icon, which you can't remove. Like I said, it's called Discover. If you mouse over it or click on it, I guess, the Discover pane opens and that sidebar appears, even if you've hidden it. So actually the Discover choice is now missing from that sidebar because it's it's out on the menu bar. They really want you to discover stuff.
I gotta discover more Bing. More Bing.
Yeah. But I think the combination of these two products is going to be the way they're going to want you to experience this, right? That because this is how you drive the most eyeballs or whatever to Microsoft products and services.
Yeah, see, that turns me off. Not all.
Yeah. But if you look at that, so I'm looking at your browser now, and I have to say it's kind of interesting because you're running Windows 11, and it's kind of everything's kind of squared off, right? This is
it's still
in
square.
Some ways the old Windows 10 UI a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So the new one, I guess it looks a little more, I don't know, native or something on Windows 11, but man,
how do I?
A lot of curves.
Is this because I'm running the old?
Well, you're running the normal. You're running the stable version.
Yeah.
So to get this new look and feel, you have to go look for Edge Dev channel.
Okay. You did say that. So I need to be on the dev channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're on the normal. This is the shipping version.
Right. I stay on the shipping version if you don't mind.
Yeah. So as part of the event yesterday, they released a new build of this thing, and it added that Bing button. Just like, ugh. Remember when Office 2007 came out, and there was like a circle up in the corner for the in the ribbon, right? Remember that thing? It looks like that sort of, but it's on the other side and it's purple.
It's had a little throb to it because they really
exactly. Yeah, right. They kind of calmed that down over time, and then they got rid of it.
Just because they're annoying.
I think we should wrap things up with Richard Campbell's Swedish whiskey of the week.
Well, it only makes sense for me to choose a Swedish whiskey, and the one you want to choose is Mackmyra.
Mackmyra.
Mackmyra. Mackmyra.
And what makes Mackmyra so good?
Well, it is a Swedish single malt, so they're following very closely to the Scottish style, although they use a variety of grains. They have a bunch of different variations. The one on the front page there, the ambassador, is when you have an urge to spend a lot of money on whiskey, they're here to help you.
Only 3,166 bottles. Ooh, port wine.
They do some port caskings and sherry caskings, like different flavors. They do a peated version. So you have some good choices there. I tend to buy, if I'm going to have a bottle of Miro around, it's Mac, which is the base whiskey, the least expensive one, like $25, $30. And it's just a legit, straightforward, you can drink this kind of single malt.
They make a gin as well, although the name is a little off-putting on the gin. It's Lab Plus Distillery Organic Gin.
Well, they're experimenting there.
Some of it's
I
in
would
the
also
lab,
mention,
some of it's in the distillery.
most whiskeys run about 45, 47%. The Mac is only 40, so it doesn't have a lot of heat to it. It drinks pretty lightly.
Nice. Mac Mira, Mackmyra. You might call it Mac and Myra, and you wouldn't be wrong, but you wouldn't be Swedish.
Right.
All right. Very nice.
So there you go.
Thank you, Richard. How much longer?
Do you have an intent? Oh, am I ever going to run out of whiskeys? I have been putting together notes to talk about the entire whiskey process.
I wasn't worried about you, how much whiskey. I was worried how long you were going to be in Sweden. I know perfectly well that whiskey can go for a long time.
We can go forever. But I have this idea in my head that I want to talk about the entire whiskey process from the Scottish perspective and refer to specific distilleries and bottlings for each of the processes.
Nice.
So it'll take a few weeks to get through it all, but you'll have some fun with it. I have some good stories.
I'm looking forward to it. When do you come home?
Home on Sunday.
All right. Well, we'll miss you. No, you'll be here. You'll be here on the show Wednesday. Then.
I'll be back on home on Wednesday.
Good.
So
right.
From there.
Excellent. Thank you, and have a wonderful week, both of you. You'll find Richard Campbell on runasradio.com. That's his Run As Radio show, and also .NET Rocks. At Richard Campbell on the Twitter. Paul Thurrott. He is Thurrott on the Twitter at thurrott.com. For his books, leanpub.com. Forget looking for him on Mastodon. He's done. He's Mastodon.
No. I like Mastodon.
Oh,
I only did was try to, jeez. I wrote a guide to getting started on Mastodon. I don't. God, people are so sensitive.
Together, Paul and Richard do this thing called Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. You can watch us do it live or listen at our live streams. Those are at twit.tv/live. If you're watching live, chat live at irc.twit.tv. That's open to all, or in our Club Twit Discord, open to Club Twit members. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show at twit.tv/ww. You can also subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and that way you'll get it as soon as it's done, a little later on a Wednesday. We will see you all next week. Thank you, winners. Thank you, dozers. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye. Listeners of this program get an ad-free version if they're members of Club Twit. $7 a month gives you ad-free versions of all of our shows, plus membership in the Club Twit Discord, a great clubhouse for Twit listeners. And finally, the Twit Plus feed with shows like Stacy's Book Club, The Untitled Linux Show, The Giz Fizz, and more. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. And thanks for your support.